it's gonna be. Flash is coming up at the top of the staircase. There's an easy kill for Hyper in a second and a third. DarkZero in full control. A triple for Grixer, and there's the quad. United.
Great teamwork. Sonics take the lead again.
Disrupt the best of the best.
His teammate's gone, and what's this? He's got a Nitro Cell as well.
TSM!
Tempo Storm absolutely storms through this matchup. Oxygen takes the series.
Spacestation Gaming are your world champions!
Welcome to day 4 of stage 2 of the Rainbow Six Siege US division. Lots of action ahead of us today. Some awesome matches. Super psyched for them. I'm Jackie Jing, and I am with Veli and Jesse. Hello, gentlemen. How are you feeling on this wonderful Wednesday?
I'm feeling great. We actually have some of the best matchups that we're going to see all season long, especially with the first one. DarkZero over Spacestation Gaming. That's a battle of the titans. I'm ready to get the games going.
Yeah, definitely pumped up. Jesse, how you feeling this Wednesday?
I feel good. Clearly somebody at Twitter is quite upset that my predictions have been so good, so they're trying to silence me. No, I think that's just a bug going on. But hey, we're here now, so we can focus on the broadcast.
Yeah, in case you wanted to tweet at Jesse, yeah, he's not present on Twitter right now. We are trying to get that resolved immediately. That's a very pressing issue, Jesse, but let's talk about the matches a little bit today. We want to get them rolling as soon as possible. Let's take a look at the schedule. We got DarkZero versus Space Station. Veli just said super amped for that one. Then Tempo Storm versus TSM. You know, I'm kind of excited for that one as well because Tempo was looking sharp last week, y'all. So definitely some great matches ahead of us. But before we get into all that and start breaking everything down for you folks at home, a quick word from our sponsors. Take a listen. And we are back, and right before we get everything going, I always like to talk to Jesse, have him break down our point and prize system. It can always be a little bit confusing for folks, so Jesse, really quickly, just tell us how that all works.
Yeah, so it's important to know what we're playing for here in the NAL. Obviously, there's a lot of money on the line to dig into first. First place inside of the NAL is going to walk away with $15,000, really nice chunk of change. There's also points that people really need to start paying attention to, because that's how you get to the 6th Invitational. As North American teams compete inside of the NAL, they play through the qualifier to go to the major. They'll get a certain amount of points, and then at the majors, where the bulk of the points get given out, and then at the end of the year, top 16 teams globally will go to the 6th Invitational.
All right, and let's bring up the bracket here and break down what we're going to be seeing today. We'll start off with Group A, of course, and DarkZero. They defeat the Sonics, and SSG took down E United. E United came out victorious Monday, and now the top of Group A, DZ and SSG facing off. Yeah, you just heard it from Veli. Ooh, that's how we all feel about that one. As for Group B, Tempo beat OXG, and Disrupt lost to TSM. OXG won against DG, and later today, the top of Group B, currently Tempo and TSM, will battle. But back to the Group A matchup that is about to begin, and we're going to start off talking about DarkZero. They're the top of the US division right now. They won the August Major. They had a solid win against the Sonics last week. DZ is looking great, Veli, and all eyes are on this matchup today. These are the top teams in Group A, and arguably the top 2 teams in the US division. So, Veli, DZ, I feel like they're feeling the pressure today, surely. They have a formidable SSG that they have to beat.
I don't think they're feeling the pressure too much, though, Jackie. Watching
Really?
their documentary series, it seems like DarkZero, they're on a path to just perfect their craft and just to stay on top. They want to continue to be consistent at where they're at. Okay, they've already done the hard work. Okay, they fixed their weak side. They fixed everything else. Eclipse has showed out in a big way, and Hot and Cold has been one of the best hard breachers out there in the world. DarkZero, I think beating Space Station Gaming though, I don't think it's pressure. I think they're trying to make a statement. That's what I truly believe in when it comes to DarkZero.
Well, we'll see if they can make that statement today. We've talked a lot about Hyper. We've chatted a lot about Eclipse recently as well. But Jesse, you and I were talking earlier, and you were like, nah, I want to talk about Mint. So
Yeah.
Mint's the man, huh?
Yeah, I mean, Mint's the one that has sort of caught my eye, his shield play in particular. And this is something we've talked about with Mint for years now. He's always been known as that shield player, but he seems to go through phases of playing a lot of shields, playing almost no shields. In stage 1, over the regular first 2 phases, he only played 1 round. That was an opening matchup. Otherwise, no shields to be seen from Mint. Then we got to the Major, and he pulled it out big time and played a lot of shields, a lot of Blitz, a lot of Montaigne, doing what he loves to do, and he totally, slaughtered everybody at the Major. It seems like since the start of Stage 2, he's getting back on that shield train. He wants to keep it going. He played it 7 out of 12 rounds, attacking rounds that is, in the first game. So it's nice to see that Mint is keeping on going with this shield strategies that he likes to bring. And I will be interested to see, going forward in the season, if we start seeing more and more teams ban shields against DarkZero like they used to, 1 or 2 years ago when they were really liking to rock this shield lineup.
Okay, so that has us covered when it comes to DZ. Let's take a look at their opponent, SSG.
Let's go.
SSG hasn't had a bad stage 1 or stage 2, honestly. They've been pretty solid this season, but we are so used to the SI 2020 champs being dominant, and I think they're going to be out for blood today. Veli, they are determined to dethrone DZ and reclaim their crown.
You know what, Jackie? If I were Space Station Gaming, I'd take this personal. I mean, let's be completely honest for a second. If these players believe that they're that good, this is a game they have to win. DarkZero came in with a bang. They're looking like the best team that I've seen since I've entered the scene. I haven't seen anybody play on that level yet, especially in NA. So Space Station Gaming, if they want to continue saying NA is mine, this is what we're all about, we need to see some more consistency. Watching VOD and talking to other casters and players, I keep hearing the same thing. Consistency has been an issue some rounds. Some rounds, flawless victories, they look good. The next, it seems like everything falls apart. That's not what we need. We need more explosion, especially coming from Folks and Rampy. They did good, they haven't been doing bad. But still, at the beginning of rounds, we saw them having a little bit of trouble when it came to entry fragging. But I think Space Station Gaming, they're primed and they're ready for this match if they want it bad.
Yeah, I definitely think we need to see more consistent play from them. But again, maybe they can show that to us today. Jesse, I want to talk to you. I was recently listening to a podcast, and the Canadian was saying like DZ is great when they can do their homework, and I think we kind of all know this. I think we've all kind of said that. So what do you think SSG needs to do today to throw off DZ?
Yeah, I mean, at first I want to back it up a little bit, and I might counter that point that Space Station haven't really been too consistent. I think SSG have been one of the most consistent teams that we've seen inside of North America, and I think it's deceptive, right? Because you can take a look at the Major, and you can see they got 3rd place. That's not where we anticipate SSG to be. That's not the placing that they wanted. But it still felt like in a lot of those games, Space Station Gaming were putting up a really strong performance. In that final match against TSM where they got knocked out of the tournament, they still looked like they were playing really, really well, and it was only a couple of small things that I think got them knocked out of the Major. And then even going into Phase 2, or Stage 2 I should say, when we saw them play against United, they still looked quite strong. United are a much different team than what we saw from Stage 1, and I was still pretty impressed with what I saw from Space Station Gaming taking that close W. Maybe some things on Clubhouse that tripped them out that United pulled out, but overall I think Space Station have been playing really well. I think that they're starting to get slept on, and again, a lot of that comes from just their placement at their Major. I think it looks worse on paper than it did in the actual matchup. They really do look like one of the strongest teams inside of North America still to me. So I'm anticipating they're coming strong. The map ban phase is going to be really interesting for me because these teams are so close and they played each other a couple of times now in Phase 1, or in Stage 1 I should say. Where we go is going to be a really key point for me. So I'm hoping they bring out some unique maps that they don't often play.
Okay, and gentlemen, let's just talk about the hype of this matchup here.
Oh boy!
I mean, Veli, you've just been like excited since we started rehearsals like hours ago. I mean, we definitely are excited to see these two teams go face off. Like, they kind of already have like a little bit of a rivalry. There's been some smack talk between the two, but I mean, like,
Fun smack
right now,
talk.
these are arguably two of the best teams in the world, definitely in the U.S. division. So, I mean, talk to me about what are these two teams feeling right now?
There's so much on the line, okay? Coming into this year, even before the year started, it was SSG that won USN 2019, and they were on top of NA. Then they won 6 Invitational. And DarkZero, once upon a time, a team on top of NA, they started to slip a little bit. SSG and TSM started to make some noise. And like I said earlier on, the performance that they've been having lately has been some of the most dominant gameplay that I've seen. Now, can SSG get back to their old ways? I think so. Jesse thinks that their consistency hasn't been an issue, and he talks about E United and whatnot. E United lost 7-4, 7-4 the first time around, so those are still close matchups. I want to see SSG not play to the level of their opponents. I want to see SSG dominate the competition. That's the version of this team I really want to see. But these two teams, there's a lot of bragging rights on top of this matchup. It's not a major, but this might as well be the grand finals.
Yeah, this is absolutely a game we could see repeating itself when we get to the North American Major Grand Finals. I always love the rivalry between these squads because Space Station, they're a little bit more vocal. You know, Canadian himself on Twitter likes to throw in some jabs, and DarkZero are typically, other than their own Twitter account, the players are typically a little bit quieter, but they fight back in the game, right? I remember just looking at that last major when they were moving into their house, and Troy said, well, you need everything. You don't need that trophy room, though. And then DarkZero go and win a trophy. So it's always fun to see the back and forth between these two squads, and I'm sure there's going to be heat in this game.
I don't know what it is. And Jesse, I think it was you that said it, Jesse. I said, like, they just kicked up another notch. And he said, yeah, you know, you move you into a mansion, you just become just a whole different team.
Yeah,
and I think
cool.
that's the case with this team. You treat your players well, and they dominate the competition.
Okay, gentlemen, this just coming in, we are ready for the map selection process.
go.
So we're going to bring that information up on your screen right now. So take a look at these map vetoes and tell me what you're thinking.
All right, so a couple of bands, Theme Park Consulate, Cafe. This is the one I was really hoping we'd see. These two teams played a lot in stage 1 on this map, so I'm excited for this. Space Station won it the first time, DarkZero got their revenge, and now they're going to play it for a third time, so I'm excited to see Cafe. Then we get Villa. This was Space Station's most played map of stage 1. Their only loss was to TSM. Not been great for DarkZero. They've only won it once, and it was 8-7, so that one probably leaning towards Space Station. And then map 3, Coastline. So DarkZero played this last week. Yeah, they beat Sonics really bad last week, but Space Station have been super consistent on Coastline. They're 10-1 on this map over the last 9 months, so that's a really good record to have going into Coastline. This should be a great series.
Basketball on Coastline is a problem, Jackie.
Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm getting excited. Okay, so time for predictions. Really quickly, Veli, what are you thinking?
All right, you all know that I really, really love Space Station Gaming's gameplay. You can't doubt the fact of the matter right now that DarkZero is hands down putting out some of the best performance that we've seen in a long time. I'm going with them. Hot and Cold is the real deal.
Okay, and Jesse?
Listen, DarkZero looked really good at the major, and they've kept that consistent throughout, since that major. We've seen them look really, really good. But I think Space Station are playing to almost the exact same level. And I wanted to hold my prediction until I saw these map bans just based off Coastline. I think that one's going to lean Space Station a little bit more. So I got to go with the World Champs over the North American Champions. I'm going to pick Space Station Gaming.
You said Space Station is playing almost to the exact same level as DarkZero?
I think they're knocking on that door. Yeah, I do.
Today?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to see. We're going to let the boys play. We're going to find out.
Okay, well, Twitter did shut down Jesse's account because he's been doing very well with predictions. So I don't know. Maybe he's right, Belly. But everyone, thank you so much for watching. And unfortunately, you cannot follow Jesse on Twitter, but you can follow R6 NA Esports. So we got all the information up on your screen right now. Please, we got a Twitter account, we got an Instagram account, and there's just always funny, ridiculous stuff and just really important info. So make sure you go follow those accounts. And coming up next, we have our community poll, so make sure you participate in that as well. And this is unprecedented, folks. This has never happened in Siege history. But coming up, we have Intero and Blue casting your matchup. Yeah, I am super excited for that. So everybody, don't go anywhere. We got DarkZero versus SSG next. I'm so excited I can't talk. All right, we'll be back in a flash.
I think what gave us the edge was the prep work. We were able to like get a read on every team and formulate a game plan for every team. We mainly just focused on ourselves while other teams are kind of focusing on us, it seemed like.
The biggest change was that we changed a lot of operator bans. We went from banning the same thing for 7 months to going to the major banning something different every time. We're more aggressive in map bans. We didn't always just go with the safe pick. We went with the maps we knew other teams were good on, but we knew we could beat them on.
In stage 2 compared to stage 1, I've kind of toned down on the solo playmaking. Whenever I'm about to make a play, I always try to tell my team now, and it always comes with like teamwork.
During the major, I kind of realized that Brandon pointed out, it's like when I focus more on calling stuff rather than getting kills, I think we perform better as a team. Tyler on the flank watch role, honestly, was kind of like a surprise to me personally, because I've always thought he was like really good at what we had him on, but him on flank watch, he's like really taken advantage of it and like done really well.
I'm looking forward to playing the Sonics the most because last time they said they should have beat us, so we'll see this time if they should have beat us again. We came really close a lot of times, and to finally achieve what we wanted is really refreshing. We just have to be able to translate that into future seasons.
The amount of effort people put in before the major, if that remains consistent, then we can continue to do it.
Hello, everybody, and this is a bit of a surprise for those of you that weren't tuning in. I'm casting with blue for the first time ever. John, I was going to make a joke about me being red, but then I realized I wasn't wearing anything that was red, except for my hair.
Well, I mean, that could apply. But either way, it's a pleasure to be here with you for the first time, and I'm very excited to get into this match, of course. We've got a really great match for us to cast together for the first time, isn't that right?
Yeah, I mean, you've got DZ versus SSG. This is the rematch of rematches. This will be the third time that they've played so far. Obviously, they were in different groups at the start of Stage 1, but SSG took them 2-0 at Stage 1, Phase 2. And then in the mini-major, DZ had the last laugh. And I think that the consensus is that Space Station is not as sharp as they have been previously, whether it be the meta, whether it be individual performance, whether it just be the rest of North America improving significantly while SSG has largely stayed the same. And I think one of the most telling things here is that Space Station's best map that everybody loves to talk about is Clubhouse happens to also be one of DarkZero's best maps. SSG was forced to ban it today. I think there are weaknesses here that DZ can exploit, and I'm eager to see exactly how DZ does that and if Space Station is able to fight back.
I think the map pool could end up being very tricky for Space Station to play into here, especially when we get around to that third map on Coastline if it goes the distance there, because both for Cafe and Villa, you've got a relatively even chance, I think, for both teams to take either of those maps or end up trading it throughout the course of the first two. But when we get over to the third one, of course, SSG does have some good record on this one going back a while, but they've also got some losses to account for. The 2 wins they have on recent record were both against OXG, and the loss they have is against TSM. Meanwhile, we've seen a much more, I think, a little bit more of a recent win coming from the DZ camp, and they've also been bringing some kind of new strategies to the table specifically for that map. So if SSG doesn't have a plan to deal with that right off the bat, that could end up being a very, very messy third map for them, and we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. Either way, I think it's going to be really interesting at the end of the day.
I do think that it is worth mentioning that these are the same maps that were played on when they met back in Stage 1, Phase 2. Obviously, a little bit different order. It started on Villa with Cafe second. Coastline was not needed, but it was the tiebreaker map. We have the same thing here, except Cafe and Villa have just switched places. That's it. And obviously, at the time that those maps were played on, obviously both victories for SSG, one a little bit more convincing than the other. Villa was 1-7-3, but then DZ seemed to wake up but couldn't close that distance on Cafe. It was a very different meta, and both Villa and Cafe played extremely well to the meta that it was in at the time, which is that mute Mozzie meta that SSG excelled in. We are now out of that intel info gathering denial style of meta. We are now looking at a utility soak style of gameplay. Chief among them is going to be deployable shields galore, Wamai, the Jaeger, whoever else you want to bring. Malusi is also on the table. And interestingly enough, I have not seen anything online about either of these teams coming to a gentleman's agreement about not playing Echo. So if that's true, then he will be in play. Some of the teams have opted to not bother using him. If that's the case, he might take up a ban spot, or he might go unbanned and the teams are going to use him as often as they can. And that alone is going to shake up what we've seen from the last week of gameplay, where most teams did not use Echo or came to an agreement without him.
Well, guys, we do have a community question as usual for you guys to go on to our social media and answer. That's going to be over on our Twitter at R6esportsNA. So we can go ahead and submit your vote for this one. We don't know. It's a battle between two strong U.S. division teams, of course. And which player out of these two is going to end up fragging out for their team today? Is that going to end up being Rampy or Hyper? Go ahead and let us know over on the social channels, and the analyst desk will be able to talk about that and show you our results a little bit later on in the show. Definitely a worthy battle, I think, between those two players.
I wonder how Jesse's going to vote using his Twitter account.
Yeah, that's not going to go too well for him, is it? That's unfortunate.
It's not. Happened to him. No. Sorry, Jesse. You don't get to tweet today.
No.
I mean, it's a shame. Out of all the analysts, I kind of wish they'd taken away Veli's account, but I mean, I'll settle for Jesse's. That's fine.
Jesse always gives us like informative information, right? Veli's just trying to get us hyped up more than anything. So
that's true. That's very true. But I do find it interesting that we focus a lot on Hyper, and I think it's correct to put his name on that question alongside Rampy. There's a lot of weapons for both Space Station and DZ to fall back on or use as they need to. But the one compliment that a lot of us have paid DarkZero over the last couple weeks of gameplay is that they are not as reliant on Hyper as they used to be. And statistically, he has been kind of quiet in a lot of their matches, letting players like Eclipse, Hot and Cold, Skies be able to take up that mantle and really carry the team. And both Eclipse and Hot and Cold have been the two standout performers in my books over the last month or so of gameplay. It would be nice to see a bounce back from Hyper, but I think the worry that a lot of people will have, and I would probably be in the same camp here, is if DZ falls back on needing Hyper to frag out every single round, that to me would be indicative of something being wrong for DarkZero. Because right now things are working out. They have lots of depth. Every player is finding contributions of some kind on the score sheet. They don't need Hyper to carry. SSG, I think, right now have a much bigger issue with finding those superstars on the scoreboard. So they will rely on, in my opinion, they're going to need Rampy to have a big day more than DarkZero is for Hyper.
Another player that comes to mind for me, and this is going to be an interesting one because the stats, of course, don't necessarily always show this. I think that like thinking need is going to be incredibly important to the success or failure of SSG when it comes to mid and late round plays. I was watching their VOD from last week's game back quite a bit, and it seemed like he was always the player that had the responsibility thrown onto him of trying to hold the site in some sort of mid-round situation and have to be the player to pick up a very important like 2 to 3 frags in that situation. Some rounds he was doing it, some rounds he wasn't, and you know, when he was able to pull that off, it was very commonly that we would see SSG follow through very easily and close out that round. If he failed, it would often go the other way. So for me, he's going to be a very pivotal and important player if he ends up being shoved into those situations time and time again, especially on the defensive half is where we're going to see that come out a lot, I think, for him.
On attack, expect him to roll with Thatcher if Thatcher's available. Nomad is a very popular operator for him as well. And SSG does like to bring him in as their flank watch, but they'll also change him out, and depending on the strategy, he'll be a lot closer to the bomb site, escorting Canadian with Bosco playing above or Bosco playing dedicated flank. Could even have Rampy or Fultz in that spot, depending on their setup, and especially on a map like Cafe. Yeah, you're going to see Thinking Nade work as a flank watch on a map like Cafe, but he does tend to stick a lot closer to the objective on attack. So it just goes to show you, I think, on Space Station's side, that they have tools at their disposal, just as DZ does, SSG does too. And like you said right at the onset, we have quite the match for us to be diving into, and we should be there in just a moment. Cafe is going to be fascinating to watch because it is still a map that is somewhat in transition. Teams are experimenting with the amount of deployable shields they're bringing. We've seen a lot of new strategies involving shooting out the bathroom walls or aggressively playing in the hallway by pixel. You've also seen teams completely forego holding that third floor and instead opting to go for the second floor or first floor bomb sites. So once again, the changes to the meta, the addition of Wamai and Malusi as well, are going to make a big difference. Let's waste no time. John, let's get into Cafe Dostoevsky, and it'll be our very first map here between Space Station and DarkZero.
Let's get right into it. First ban's already rolling out as Maverick is going to be taken out of the pool. Maverick has been used a lot recently as a safe hard breach, especially when you see bans coming out on operators like Thatcher, which I don't think as of this patch anyway, we're going to see happen as commonly anymore, but it's not completely out of the realm of possibility, as we'll see here in just a second, as it's going to be Ace instead that gets knocked out, often becoming a much more common ban now that he's been allowed into the pool here.
Waiting on that first defender ban to go with it, and it's Amira taken out. She's actually had a bit less time in the spotlight when it comes to defenders getting banned. The choices recently have revolved around Valkyrie. You've seen a lot of Wamai bans. There he is. SSG doesn't want to deal with him. If Echo is available and the teams have not agreed to avoid him, he could also take up a spot. And with it being a team like SSG, there are targeted defender bans. A lot of the times tends to be Pulse, because that's one of Canadian's strongest operators, just as we have seen shield bans to try to hurt DarkZero, and that being in the hands of Mint. So there is some flexibility here for counter bans. I would say more than anything, these aren't necessarily counter bans. Maverick is very much targeted towards Hot and Cold. Hot and Cold is likely going to sit on Hibana for the entirety of this matchup. But when you look at the rest of the bans, these are going to be operators that are incredibly strong in the meta right now. They have gadgets that work effectively on this map, and I think it's going to work both ways for both teams. I don't think there's going to be any major hindrance here outside of that Maverick against DarkZero.
Thatcher is going to be snuck in as a 6 pick here as well for the attackers on DarkZero. They traded out an IQ for it, which means they're not going to have easy vision onto any of the Valkyrie cameras that are more than likely going to be thrown out here by Canadian. Doesn't mean, of course, they can't spot them, just going to have to do a little bit more work to find those out. We also get a very quick answer to the Echo question here, as it's immediately brought into play by Fultz on round number 1. So indeed, we will be seeing him utilized in the course of this series here. So it'll be brought into the very first round. Other than that, SSG have set themselves up for a pretty straightforward library defense. You'll see the extended hold being set up here on the 3rd floor to allow SSG to maintain control of Cocktail and that Whitehall area just to the outside of it for as long as they can hopefully do, to try and waste time away from the ticker here on DarkZero's attack.
So as we've come to expect, yeah, that 3rd floor is going to be a major pivotal spot, and I'm curious to see if SSG plays it aggressively or if they just fall back to Cocktail and try to hold from that spot, because most teams are going to be able to just whisk right in and take control of the top of red. There's going to be some barbed wire in their way. They're not really going to have too much of a contest once that's opened up. And then you can see the hatch get just smashed open by Skies here. It's obvious that DZ is going to drop red and then continue onward. Rampy will play it quite aggressively, so he's not going to fall back, and he's got Bosco within arm's reach and Piano. So SSG, I think, are taking a bit of a chance being up this far, but now they have an ability to drop down if need be. Rampy can, of course, escape through the balcony as well.
Yeah, Bosco very, very wary of the possibility that this could go bad quickly when you see him opening that hatch right there. So just kind of getting ready if the worst should happen. The same can be said for Rampy with Skylight here, as you can constantly see him checking his vision back there. And it's a good thing he does too, because now he gets early warning on this flashbang, is going to be able to get out of the way of it. Not so much to be said for Bosco, though, as he does get caught falling back further down Whitehall. The good news, though, is Canadian is in position to immediately trade that back out. Hyper is going to die there. The attackers will lose control over their Zofia. And Canadian is still going to stay in action a little bit here too, although it's a bit detached from the current main fight. He's down on the 1st floor. He's going to try to get some intel before he strikes next.
You have to imagine that the smoke would likely be playing over by the B bomb site. A fallback from Bosco to the hatch that's open on the right side of the screen, dropping into laundry and then playing off of those 2 openings in there. In this case, it's likely going to be somebody with a C4 now playing in this spot, either Thinking Nate or Canadian, because your default plant spot is through the reading doorway in the top right of your screen, and it's Thinking Nate who's close enough by. But SSG continue to surprise me. They are not backing off, and by peeking these openings that they have and how Bosco and Rampy were playing above, they are taking the fight to DarkZero in a coordinated bout of aggression that, if DZ performs anywhere near as sharply as they did in the mini-major, SSG could be easily losing these gunfights.
Well, we can see Skies setting up right now for a bit of top-down angles to be able to work off, to hopefully get them towards a plan, which, unfortunately for DarkZero, they're running out of time to try and get to that point here. Oh, going to see a self-destruction charge get eaten up as well by an ADS that was left up, so unfortunate for Mint, but not a huge loss at the end of the day here. Definitely something they'll just have to get by very quickly and work to go for the plan anyway, which you now see they're getting in position to do just outside of that library door you were talking about before. On now moving in, he's going to check out a flash before he attempts to go for the plan. He doesn't have the best cover currently, so this is a bit risky. But the job is getting done. Mint starts this off well. Plant goes onto the ground. Unfortunately, the planter is not going to stay alive for very long. Thinking Nate quickly reconfirms the death of Hot and Cold, taking him out, and is now going to go for more as well. well as he takes out Mint, probably saving Rampy's life in the process. It all falls down to Skies now in a 1v3 situation, and he does have top-down control, meaning that if there's an attempt to counter defuse, he can more than likely stop it. No frag grenades to confirm it, but there we go. There's the angle I was just referring to a moment ago. Rampy goes down. Unfortunately for him, though, Fultz is going to regroup back up at Cocktail, take him out, and there should be plenty of time left to get on the counter defuse and close out the round for SSG.
Not sure exactly what Canadian's plan was playing down below, because it's not like you can nitro sell the default plant spot that would happen inside of reading, but the Valkyrie comes up at just about the right time to get in on the fray. Now, he does get taken down, but while he's removed from action, he's able to distract what looked to be two separate members of DarkZero, and the rest of his team were able to pick them off. Thinking Nate in that very important spot, as I talked about over by Laundry, his nitro cell could not connect, but he gets hot and cold right as he comes off the defuse and then swings out towards pillars. The Ash of Mint has not been able to course correct after both Mint and Eclipse were the two players from DZ who were by pillars that had been distracted by the Valkyrie heading back that way. It is also possible to nitro cell through the doorway of reading in hopes of catching the default plant spot going down and reading from where Canadian was playing. That could have been what he was going for, but he heard the commotion above him of the various DZ members that had just dropped off the balcony. Either that, or maybe he was playing downstairs because he suspected that somebody would have been coming for him. Maybe he was trying to waste time. I'm not entirely sure the thought process on why he was down there, but he came back at just about the right time, and it bought his team enough on the clock to be able to allow the rest of them to capitalize. And no matter how good of a job Skies is doing upstairs, there was no intel for him on Fultz, as the Echo, whose yokai had failed to deny the plants twice, takes matters into his own hands and then has but a couple seconds to get on that diffuser before time runs out. Well played by Space Station, I will say, on the retake, especially after they completely conceded control of the bomb site, but retook it with a lot of confidence.
So after some early success here from SSG on the second floor hold, they're not going to go down to the first floor, more than likely before attempting a third floor hold on the round after this. Of course, depending on how this defense specifically goes. We got that extended defense up to the second floor once more. Obviously, a much lesser emphasis on it in this round due to the capability that the defenders have overall to kind of turtle in this site if the need should arise for it. But that doesn't mean they're not going to play out on their top angles anyway. Thinking Nate right now being the man to do this as he currently holds control over those rooms directly over one of the kitchen's sites. And away from that, DarkZero, as we take a look at their pressure, mainly working its way into Bakery right now, with Hyper and Houghton already having control, just clearing out utility, looking for Valkyrie cams along with anything else that might be in the area before they start to go to work on these walls here. And the prep wall has been left soft. That's going to potentially open up some angles for either team there, but the main focus for DarkZero is on taking care of that Banshee, which is going to be done quite easily, thankfully, due to the Zofia being brought.
The one thing that the Maverick ban is going to completely change up is the amount of control that you can take inside of Bakery without really ceding too much of that part of the map to your opponents. We've seen time and time again teams very craftily cut a line or two through the wall, and even though the wall itself isn't completely opened, it's still enough control for them to be able to exert pressure onto the defenders that are playing on the other side. That is a hell of a shot from Bosco, as he just annihilates Hot and Cold, and with Hyper unfortunately exiting the match just a couple seconds prior, Space Station finds themselves in a 5v3 with half of the round to go.
Bosco's going to continue to hold this angle as well, and hopes that he could potentially pick up a second kill if the opportunity presents itself, and Fultz is holding an additional angle as well here, meaning Bosco's going to be even more secure. Realistically, only has to watch to his left in the primary kitchen angle, as that main door is being covered by his teammate currently. So DarkZero down, like I said, unfortunately to 3 due to the disconnection of their 4th player. Going to try their best to work this round back under their control. They do have access to the site through Bakery, but just no easy way to push in. This is all because of the angle from Bosco primarily. I believe with some assistance also coming in from deeper in towards Freezer there. Bosco picks up yet another kill. DarkZero go down to 2 here. It's all on Skies and Mint, trying to make a miracle happen. We can see some shots ringing out from Skies as he tries to put damage, I believe, on a Canadian back there, but whether he actually got vision on him, still yet to be seen. Knows for sure he's there now, but still not going to be given much at this point, considering how little time is left. There's not really a reason for Canadian to have to swing out onto that. Mint will move forward here, though, and finally pick up the first kill of the round for SSG as Rampy goes down, I believe, over by Code Check. And now with the warding coming out, we can more than likely expect an increase in pace here to come in from the DarkZero roster. They've missed the note on catching Canadian. He's since fallen way back here. The final two going to try to brute force their way in through the main kitchen door. Bosco gets his third. Canadian gets the final frag, and SSG swiftly close out round number 2.
And it's likely that we're going to need a rehost here, so we've got plenty of time to dive into exactly what happened. But with Hyper being the one to disconnect, he was playing on the Zofia. If memory serves me correctly, she is an extremely strong operator in just about every single bomb site here. And Hyper's actually rejoined the game, so we won't need a rehost. That is cause for celebration. John, I don't know if you noticed, just stopping myself for a second here, better Twitch TV emotes have now been enabled.
That's true.
So, yeah. So, it's one of my favorite emotes. It might not apply here perfectly, but Hyper is back in the game. So we could chat if we could cat jam. I would like to see some cats jamming to Hyper making his return.
That's been by far the most spammed emote since it's been activated.
The people wanted cat jam, John, and we had to give it to them. We didn't have a choice, which is hilarious because I don't know who did this, but huge hats off to them. I could dig through my Discord logs from when I said, hey, can we add BTTV or Frankers, the FFZ emotes? I asked that like 3 years ago and was told like, no, it's unprofessional. So I don't know who now is saying, you know what, it might not be professional, but we love cat jam. So they've enabled it. So kudos to them and hats off to them. But
you didn't have to used to enable it either. It used to just be on by default. So it's a newer thing.
I am very happy, and I'm sure the denizens of Twitch are happy as well. But so a couple things with that attack, though. The lack of Maverick means that when you open up the wall, there is a greater viewpoint for the defenders to see you from. And I mean, Bosco showed that off immediately in the round once the two openings had been created by the ex-Kairos of Hibana. The front of Bakery is completely opened up with Hibana or Thermite on the board. Not the same with the Maverick on the board. Now, the way the DZ plays a Bakery take is they do open up a portion of the wall, but the rest of it is just lines for them to be able to hold off of. And given that they have 5 players who are very adept at hitting their shots, you as a defender have essentially lost that. You can't actively peek it unless you are willing to engage in a 50-50, which not every team is. Space Station seems to be quite committed to take 50-50s right now, so maybe they would. But what it also means when you lose your Zofia right off the rip is that you can't do any discovery work inside of the bomb site. Number one, if you're going to be clearing out any ADSs, can't really do it as easily anymore because you're going to be missing 2 concussions. If there's any evil eyes that need to be taken care of, any deployable shields, your best operator for doing that, other than somebody with frag grenades, as we see the Sledge have, is the Zofia. So just losing Hyper right away and then not having the Maverick at their disposal meant that the likelihood of taking Kitchen fell to basically 0 for DarkZero. And, well, we saw they still had, what, 4 players alive on Space Station side of things. They didn't break a sweat.
Did see a little bit of damage here at the beginning of the round on the Hyper, more than likely coming from Thinking Innate as he holds this Washrooms defense currently, obviously against the repel from not just Hyper, but at least 1 or 2 other players from DarkZero. They're going to move away from that, though. I believe at least one of them is going to go up to the top and group up with the main portion of the team that's now working for better control inside of the actual building. I believe that one on repel from before is now going to hop over towards the new balcony as well and see if they can pick anything up from there, or lucky to force a player from SSG into the open. You can see Hyper being on that position right now. Away from that, though, again, still focusing very heavily on the drone work and trying to see what exactly the lineup is right. Oh, no, never mind. DarkZero just going to hop 2 players in from Skylight. It's going to lead to a series of trades, but ultimately SSG seems to be holding them back. No, maybe not, as both Eclipse and Skies were able to find trades for the loss of their players from a few seconds ago. Skies gets into Freezer and finds himself yet another one as Fultz goes down, and all of a sudden it's down to Rampy, who was holding white control during this whole charade. He's going to try his best here to bring this back under his control in a 1v3 scenario. They already know where he's positioned, chooses not to rotate and holds the angle instead. That'll give him 1 down on a player. No confirmation just yet, though, and unfortunately he's brought down to low HP, so the repeat from Hyper swinging the same angle is enough to trade him out, take him down, and close out on the round from DZ with a very straightforward but very successful attacking strategy.
In the olden days of Space Station, this would have been a setup where a Mute, a Mozzie, possibly a Vigil would have prevented most of those attacking teams from realizing that the significant blind spot in Space Station's defense was that Skylight, and you called it absolutely correctly when SSG were overwhelmed and just absolutely got swamped from a DZ hot drop, which you don't see every day, especially not in North America. And because DZ can fall back on having operators with good guns and having good aim, and we know their communication from all the videos that they share on social media, it's a position in a situation in which DZ are going to flourish, and they did just that. They dropped in. You know the relative spots of where the defenders are going to play. There's likely going to be somebody in the bar back store. There's going to be one playing in piano. Somebody's probably going to be over by white. You've got one over by cocktail. The question mark is where the fifth is going to be. And DZ just dropped in and they'd pinpointed those 4 operators with the exception of the question mark. Rampy gets isolated on the top of white stairs because DZ don't put themselves in a position where they are in a line of sight from top of white until, of course, they went to go for a plant over by cocktail. But at that point, it's a 1v3. If you stick together and you don't push separately, which is what DZ did not do, DZ followed the advice of everybody who plays this game at a top level, there's no way that Rampy is going to be able to get himself out of that position. He's a talented player. We're just simply going to get overwhelmed, and there's a reason why DZ doesn't tend to lose, you know, XV1s the same way other teams do, and it's a combination of good comms, good aim, and good strategy. So with that, DarkZero just realizes that their best opportunity is to take the fight right to Space Station. Strategy, trying to take piano and all that be damned, and DZ engages in a fist fight that they come out on top of.
Really good stuff from DarkZero. Build up an eventual explosion out onto the site that works beautifully for them. Is going to force SSG back to their original site choice. Mind you, this is one that they've won for themselves already here. Just not feeling the confidence to go back to that third floor hold after what had transpired back on round number 3. You're going to see members of DZ following the same overall beginning plan, though, as you still have to go for similar third floor control against the second floor hold, as we've already seen DarkZero try to do previously. Bit of roaming presence to clear out, but it does look like SSG already have a large majority of their player base on the second floor. Doesn't mean they're going to stay there, though, as you can see at least 3 players working their way towards white stairs as of this moment. But other than that, SSG only have 1 player contained on the third floor itself, further back towards cocktail and white. Away from that, DarkZero have also started to take some map control for themselves now, as they're moving in from the train windows. It looks like successfully able to take control there.
And this Echo being up was not enough to stop the plant in round number 1, the only round where DZ was able to get their objective play off despite still falling behind in that round. And it is very likely that DarkZero was well aware of an Echo being on the board, and a big part of why I imagine DZ have swapped out the Ash in Mint's hands and instead gone for the IQ. And you could have seen earlier in this round that Mint excels with that gadgetry and will likely have the scanner out. Now the question is going to be, will they actually be able to shoot those Echo drones, or will they be in locations where Space Station know they are relatively safe? The focus at the moment from DarkZero is coming over from mining, and no way you don't see that Hyper as Fultz just pounces on that kill. And that is just once again bravado from Space Station time after time, and it pays off at the start of round number 4's execute.
The round as well here, we're going to lose Hyper. Questionable amount of the utility actually utilized. Definitely looks like at least 1 or 2 of the impact charges were used. Beyond that, though, most notably the stun charge is going to go to wasted as the Zofia is lost very early on yet again here. Away from that, though, DarkZero still have some admirable control for the time point in the round that they're at. Approaching the 30-second mark, their biggest obstacle is going to be getting the entire team together, but I think with good control of red, they should be able to do that quite easily, which is what they're looking to get towards now. Mint nearly being able to get himself a fight, realized that there might be a camera in the process of that, but also a fatal mistake. He's missed the transition from Fultz. Great repositioning from him as it guarantees a win in the fight. Bosco also has success in taking out Hot and Cold. Eclipse will find a trade, but as we can see, Fultz very close to finding one on his own. He might not get the opportunity to get it, though, as he's losing teammates like crazy. Thankfully, recovers, though, and takes out Eclipse, bringing it all onto Skies, who will try his best to clutch out the 1vx, but Thinking Nade comes out on top of the final duel, and SSG maintain a 3-1 lead.
Heck of a seesaw of a round, given the fact that it was a very strong hold by Space Station, puts them up on big numbers, and then DZ fights their way through that top floor, and then they stumble as they go to drop back down. And you can see right there, Eclipse falters, Skies falters, and the large part of that was that the clock was ticking away and you didn't have as much intel as you needed. Additionally, I would suspect there was probably at least 1 yokai up and reading. Thinking Nade was able to play off of those comms when Skies marched on in. And SSG is quite determined to continue to run this operator. It stands to reason now why neither of these teams opted for, well, maybe one of the teams. We don't know exactly how it broke down, but there is no gentleman's agreement for Echo, and he will continue to be brought. Suspect an IQ on the board pretty much every round to combat that. And, well, if you're suspecting that, then you won't be surprised to see that DarkZero are very committed to that IQ operator pick. It is worth noting, though, John, that for the next matchup, which is TSM versus Tempo Storm coming up after this, which will be casted by Kickstar and Stokes, that both of the teams have come to an agreement. There will be no Echo played in that matchup. So it's nice to see teams at least come to agreements, whether it's agreeing to play or not. Want any dissension among the ranks here?
Correct, you are. All right, folks. Well, other than what we're seeing with the Echo play, and the change up the operator, or the player who is on the operator, things are going to stay pretty much the same here for SSG's defense, moving back down into the freezer and kitchen sites. Very much what you expect for this, as there's going to be a lot of emphasis on defending the main kitchen. There are reinforcements this time on a prep where it was left soft previously, so a little bit of a change up there for SSG. But other than that, things are being played pretty much the same way. Also, no Kaid this time either for the denial, due to the fact that it got dealt with almost immediately by DarkZero last round. So they're thinking that the utility is better served with a different operator here, and they're probably correct on that.
So with this being a defense of the kitchen all the way on the bottom floor, instead of just rushing in through bakery as we'd seen DarkZero do previously, they're going to clear from the top down. And this is something that we've seen teams on Cafe do quite a lot, especially if they're wary of the defending team doing a 1-2-2 or 2-1-2 setup, depending on how this is going to go. Now, this is quite the run out, and it might get caught, and there it is. Yes, indeed. Hot and Cold was on drone just by the, what is that, the donut truck? Pastry truck, whatever you want to call it. The new, it used to be white, now it's pink. Anyway, thinking Nate went for a run out, and he had a couple teammates there, but Hot and Cold was spotted, or Hot and Cold spots him, and that's a rough go for SSG to forfeit that, but they did earn a lot of time off of it, and they at least know the location of where the hard breach is. They'll force Hot and Cold to have to maneuver somewhere else if he wants to be a little cheeky, but
A little bit more drone work to make sure that there isn't going to be anyone else hiding out at bottom line. That's more than likely because we're about to see Hot and Cold go in through second floor and start to clear things out below that. Obviously, the top-down work being done here by Skies. That's Sledge, so that'll be his primary role here. And of course, if he can find any players trying to either drop a nade on their heads or just take the head right off with a bullet, it's going to be his other job here. Nade's going down into where we saw a lot of play from Bosco the last time this site was used, but he's on a different operator this time. The roles have shifted a little bit, so no longer going to be playing into that same position. Nade won't find much success as a result of that, but just trying to play off of recollection from the previous round. Skies does have some success in getting damage on the Fultz, though. He's able to bring him down to right around 60, catching him on a cross there for one of his top-down angles. Other than that, though, not finding much success here on trying to isolate out individual members of SSG. And this is good, too, because they are fighting from behind after having lost Thinking Nade on that run-out, so they do need to make sure they keep as many players alive here as possible before the eventual execute comes in, which should be happening any moment now. Fultz can take a little bit of a risk here, runs through the incendiary, and loses quite a bit of HP as a result of that. Skies will find the first entry, however, with the killing of Rampy.
Hot and Cold trying to get that diffuser down, but no, it's not going to happen. He got blasted out by the yokai, and Sky's still upstairs inside a train. Is just putting in so much work. Mint trying to stop Bosco, can't do it, and Bosco will lose. Canadian leaving just a 1v4, but there's some damage being done to Hot and Cold. He'll try to plant from the safety of the map curve. SMG-11 will drop Eclipse, but Hot and Cold should be able to get away with this one while Bosco fights inside of the service door, waiting on top of it. Still pings coming out. You can hear the telltale sounds of a yokai nearby, but Bosco's not going to be able to do much with it. Skies is still above on that second floor. At least we have to expect. No, he's made his way down to the bottom floor, watching the door, and Bosco will get caught by him the moment he gets out. There is no way for Bosco to get out without one member of DarkZero seeing him. An almost unwinnable situation. Only good news, the longer he takes, maybe Hyper can get back in. Nope, there he goes. Hot and Cold finishes him off. DZ take their second round after getting the diffuser down.
You can see him trying his best to work towards that. I think the disconnect might have thrown him off a little bit because I believe Hyper was somewhere over there towards Whiskey. I heard the death noise right before that, so I don't know if he heard that, but he was definitely checking that angle, and that seemed to be the main reason why he was hesitating to go that direction for such a long time. If he had caught that, obviously, and tried to make a move a little bit earlier on, things could have played out differently, but we're not going to fault him for not properly playing around a disconnect. So yeah, just definitely not one that we expected him to win at the end of the day anyway there, and it will go into the hands of DarkZero as a result of that. And of course, folks, we're now working to rehost very quickly here so that we can get Hyper back in the server.
Yeah, of course, not just playing off the community poll from earlier, but Hyper is a very critical component of the DarkZero machine. And on top of that, he's playing Zofia, and Zofia is a very important operator when it comes to pulling off executes in a meta that requires a lot of explosives. Obviously, for those that might not know exactly what we're talking about, you're going to see a lot of operators bringing deployable shields. Goyo brings 2 of them with the explosives on the back, but a whole slew of other operators are going to be bringing them as well. That allows the defenders to play behind it with the slats. It's intel for them to be able to play off of. And then, of course, the only way to get rid of those shields is to blow them up. Frag grenades, explosives, grenade launchers, etc., depending on what operators they are. And Sophie is really, really attuned at being able to blow stuff up. I was tempted to, I almost used a swear there, John. But losing her is tough. Also, you don't have the concussions, and not just the concussions clear out ADSs. Wamai is banned, so you don't need to worry about the headaches that magnets provide. But those concussions also are proximity based, so they will go off if somebody is nearby. So you can do discovery work with them and get information off of it while also using them somewhat haphazardly to clear out ADSs. Losing Hyper now, not ideal. And this is potentially 2 rounds that DZ could have lost. They won one of them, they lost the other. But that's because DZ were a well-oiled machine and they were able to play to their setup and hold angle. Skies came down and rotated as you called out. You thought that Hyper was playing over by Whiskey. Skies assumed that position. And honestly, both of these teams are in fine form so far today, and this match has lived up to its billing through 5 rounds.
Yeah, certainly the case. And I think it's only going to continue to get more exciting, of course, as the match gets closer and closer to its endpoint. Teams will start to play harder and harder to try and either save themselves from a loss or push for that win at the end of the day. So we should expect this game to continue to get better as it goes further into itself. Just going back to the point you were making before about why we're seeing, the Zofia play so much, the same reasons can be brought into why we're seeing, that the combo between 3 different operators. Zofia, we're seeing a lot of Sledge being brought into, and a lot of that's for the same reason, not only because of so many top-down angles, but he's got those frag grenades. Frag grenades were limited a bit as they were taken away from Buck as well, and I think Dokubi lost them recently too, so you have a much more limited pool for that, and now you're seeing Sledge brought in. Like, almost every team is just constantly bringing Sledge at this point on attack as well, just so they can have the extra frag grenades to work with on top of the pretty much infinite level of soft destruction that the hammer can give you to set up those top-down angles.
Sledge is important for a number of reasons, and obviously Buck's play rate has fallen off of a cliff. He is just not really brought by teams ever. A couple regions will still use him, but not anywhere near that many. Additionally, with Maverick being banned, you now need to run the Sledge if you want grenades. The only other operator that we tend to see bringing frag grenades that some attacking teams will roll out is Yana, but she's not really required on a map like Cafe because you don't need that same style of discovery work that she brings with her gadget. So if you can't have the Maverick bringing those frag grenades, you're going to bring Sledge. Now, some teams would still run both of them in tandem. Four grenades, 2 sets of grenades, that's pretty damn powerful. And if you can clear out the 3 ADSs, given that Wamai is banned, that would be really strong, not just to take out deployable shields, but to flush defenders out of positions, to use them to blow up gadgets, etc. The Evil Eyes are a prime target for frag grenades to be used on. But obviously Maverick being banned means that it's going to be Hibana most of the time. I like the change that DZ used on Thermite, though I don't think the exothermic charge was as noticeable. Just because of the way that SSG played that when they forfeited the first pick, I think there was a lot of control that DZ got from that, especially towards the backside of the map through Freezer. So, like I said, both teams playing exceedingly well, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see a draw here after this first half as we head into round number 6 and SSG have 3 rounds and DZ have 2. I don't know about you, but it sure feels like DZ would be capable of stealing that final round.
Yeah, both teams are playing very close to each other. I wouldn't also be too surprised if we still end up seeing the defenders take a pretty good advantage here. They've been holding their own for the most part throughout the course of this. It's really only been that 3rd floor site that they've had to worry about to a pretty huge degree. So we'll see, of course, how this still develops over the past few rounds. And of course, once we get all the players into the server and whatnot. But I think that overall, we should expect hopefully a bit of a turnaround here as we get towards the second half and start to see things develop for those defenders a little bit more as well once DZ get their chance at that for this next round here.
Absolutely. There have been a couple things that have really stood out to me for both of these teams. For DarkZero, their attacks on a map that does tend to tilt towards the defense, as Cafe does from time to time. And this is a good map for both teams, so it's not like SSG is doing well because DarkZero were slouches, and it's not like if it was the roles reversed, we'd be saying the same thing. DZ have been quite strong on their entry. The issues that I found with DarkZero so far have mostly been through the mid round, and that's where SSG tends to really find their footing, and it's a solid counterpunch that they land. 2 objective plays so far for DZ, which is great, but through 5 rounds, it looked like DZ was poised to be able to get a couple diffusers down, and they got rebuffed because SSG were better at playing through the final minute or so of each round.
All right, guys. Well, we are going to go to a short break here as we are still waiting for the server to be set up. Apologies, of course, for the delay with resuming the match, but do stick with us as we're going to come back as soon as we are ready to continue the play here between DarkZero and Spacestation Gaming, Stage 2 of the North American League.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for the patience. We are almost ready to get back into Cafe Dostoevsky between Space Station and DarkZero, 2 titans of the US division. So far, this match has very much lived up to its billing. SSG starting on defense on DZ's map, by the way. And so far, SSG is in the driver's seat, but only by a single round. And as you can see, between the gorgeous head of hairs and faces that are John and I, there is a game ready, and we'll cue right into it and not make you have to look at us any longer.
All right, guys, let's get into it here. See exactly what we're looking at for round number 6. As we're going to start off right where we left off here. And that means we're also going back to a fireplace and mining room defense, apparently, for SSG's final round here. Operator lineup is going to look fairly similar to what we've seen previously. Big emphasis on the Echo play, but there's that pulse that Parker was talking about at the beginning of the match there. We haven't seen a whole lot of it yet, as Canadian's primarily been on that Valkyrie that he had selected before, but now the pulse is going to be brought out.
Attackers need to locate and defuse as many bombs as they can.
Pulse on the very final defensive round, and it's going to be a bomb site that has not shown up just yet. The site rotation for SSG so far is reading room twice, kitchen twice, cocktail once. And, well, barring DZ's excluding DZ's victory on kitchen that just happened, the only other bomb site that they really struggled with was cocktail, which we do tend to see quite a fair bit. Up on that 3rd floor, teams don't exactly like holding it because it doesn't allow you any room for error. Once you've lost control of piano and they've taken your defenses out around the skylight, you are essentially paralyzed. And what most teams used to do was put somebody down below with a nitro cell. But that is a very obvious defense that a lot of teams trot out. So most of your opponents will clear out that 2nd floor first. That leaves only one other bomb site to go to, which is mining, which is where SSG is going to go. And do not be surprised if you see them holding that 3rd floor as if it were a cocktail defense.
Away from that, this will be interesting to see how this gets played out specifically, because obviously they're going to have to contest the windows towards mining and red stairs a little bit more actively this time. I was hoping we'd see Canadian playing close to it and there'd be active attempts to counterplay against the operators that were near it, but doesn't seem to be the main plan right now, though that could come into the picture a little bit later. Canadian primarily watching out for that east side of the building, trying to assist the extended roam up on the 3rd floor right now, more than anything else. As of course we can see the members of DZ focusing very much on the red and other hatch drop-ins here that they can then work towards getting towards the site from. Assumably they're going to take Christmas control, of course, before they start to work their way downstairs at a minimum, and ideally they'd want to clear out these players over in Cocktail too. But that's going to prove to be a little bit harder, mainly because there's 3 of them there right now, but also quite a few other factors as well.
The moment that Rampy gets the call, he'll drop through that hatch into laundry, so you don't need to worry about the Echo getting into any particular engagement. Fultz is now on the Jaeger in a spot that Rampy was playing on Jaeger before. If you're not confused, don't worry, so are we. He's playing up at the top of white stairs by lumber or pallets or whatever teams want to call it. And this push from DZ is going to come about with about 90 seconds left. They're doing their due diligence to just try to clear out white stairs as best as they can, and we can see from the silhouettes there's somebody playing in that spot. If they go to move, you're going to essentially have a reflex test on hot and cold, and well, guess what? Old man, you take a seat. That's why you're on hard breach. Fultz walks away with that one, getting the very first pick for Space Station.
That's gonna be Carrier getting dropped for a second too, although it looks like DarkZero have already been able to retrieve it for themselves. Unfortunate turn of events once again here for DarkZero, as they just can't seem to catch a break. Skies is going to be dropped out, meaning this gets brought down to a 3v5. DarkZero Fortunately, having the disadvantage getting pushed even further. A little bit of top-down coverage going to be worked on here. Min, of course, is clearing on any cameras or any free utility that he can take out with his pistol from up on top. Other than that, the Zofia doing a lot of the work right now to clear out some top-down angles to work from. But like we said before, without the sledge, that's going to hurt them quite a bit with their capability to try to open that up and eventually attack the site now when it comes down to the wire, which it's getting to that point here for DarkZero. 27 seconds remaining. They do need to start negotiating for second floor control, or just start sending players down there to try and make plays, if anything at all. That seems to be the goal with Mint in position outside of the window. Other than that, though, there's nothing really being presented to Hyper or any of the other players hiding out in train, so they're just going to have to make a play for this. Going towards the hatches, getting ready to jump in. Until the IQ is probably not going to end up being too well off here due to the shotgun play, but is able to avoid that by routing around the other direction. Actually, he's going to get caught quite a bit here, but time runs out anyway, as unfortunately DarkZero just can't piece themselves together quickly enough, and as a result of that, SSG will win it out on the timer.
Very tough situation to find yourself in and to get out of alive. When Skies is removed, it doesn't really matter what operator he's playing on. It's now a 3v5, and you have the very difficult task of determining where the Echo is playing and where the Pulse is playing. And yeah, an IQ isn't poorly suited for that job by any stretch of the imagination, but if you sick the IQ on gadget duty, then that removes the IQ from your actual push, leaving you into essentially a 2v5, depending on how good of a job the Pulse and the Echo do at being able to hide and not let their utility get caught or spotted. At that point, you don't really have the destruction you need. You don't have the third floor control that you really need. SSG wisely peeled off, realizing that they didn't need to hold third floor as aggressively, and they could spread out on that second floor and watch the window that we saw leading out onto the balcony. They can watch the doorways leading from pillars, and they can excel in all of those areas, especially knowing that DarkZero would be working under the pressure of the clock. DarkZero did not have the tools at their disposal to be able to disrupt the defense from Space Station, and they weren't going to win on gunfights alone because, as you could see from a handful of operators, SSG had crossfires established to be able to trade it off, or the DZ members would all have to head in through the same direction where they would be lucky to take out the SSG member before SSG gunned down somebody from DZ. So unfortunately now, another round for DarkZero where things have just not worked out the way they wanted, but they at least get a bit of a reset button. They can catch their breath now that they will be on defense for the remainder of this match unless overtime is required.
And as far as that first round defense is going to go, once again, fairly standard third floor hold here coming out from the DarkZero defense. We do have Mint extended out a bit on this hold, currently watching for any second floor lurks against him. But other than that, we've got your usual aggressive players spanning out to the west side of the map from the kind of stronghold that's going to be set up over towards Cocktail and Freezer, for their anchor players to wait for in the event SSG get to that point in the round. Hot and Cold, though, very much the front man right now to try to take any early duels, as we still see quite a bit of emphasis from SSG on trying to get into those hatches, as you might expect for really any attack against this third floor here. It's going to be actually pretty aggressive for Eclipse, notably. He's going to be getting very close to the windows here, hoping he gets lucky being able to see a player and hopefully isolate said player, but not this time. No luck in trying to spot anyone out there, so we will fall back to the relative safety of the pixel reinforcement.
A great display of the new Rainbow Six share skins on your screen, as Hot and Cold is running the G2 Jaeger carbine skin. Skies earlier on, Sledge was running the liquid skin. And of course, Rainbow Six share is a continuation or a rebirth, a new phase, whatever you want to call it, that many people will remember fondly as being known as the pilot program. Kix and I actually talked about this, I believe it was on Wednesday. This was the brainchild of Stuart Ewan at Ubisoft, along with the rest of the esports team. And the tier 1 skins are all out. We also saw Ninjas in Pajamas skin being run by Hot and Cold, so lots of credit being given to the opponents of DZ and SSG, and you of course can get them. The revenue is split, so some of that money will go back to the teams, it will go back towards prize pools, it will go towards the esports program, etc., and they are available today. So
go grab them.
Just as Fultz grabs Hot and Cold?
Not as violently, but yeah. We'll see him.
I mean, yes, you don't need to murder to get the skins, I promise you. Though with how nice those skins look, I assume they will be murdering my wallet.
Well, a good start for SSG to continue their lead, of course, taking out the front and forward Jaeger from play. That's hot and cold removed from the round. Other than that, no significant damage done to anybody else on the DZ roster. So really just waiting for SSG to make the next move. Nice smoke catch right there. Is actually going to do a lot of damage to Fultz as he's brought down very low, but he gets the last laugh. Swings out further into Christmas, gets the immediate response. Bosco also finding a frag. Mint will pick one up. Successful hold into White as well as he goes for another one, but unfortunately finally meets his match against Thinking Nade, who is already into Cocktail with full control. SSG keep their lead growing strong with a win on the initial round for their attack.
This once again showing you why the Cocktail bomb site is so unfavorable to the defenders right now. You are not in good shape to be able to hold it once you lose control of Piano and Christmas, as you have referred to it as. A little bit of Stokes seeping through there on the Christmas call. But that's okay.
There's
John,
technically 2 Christmases on this map. So.
You are free of him today.
Sure, I can call it Cigar.
You are free of Stokes. We are all free of Stokes. No, I'm kidding. But once you lose control of the Red Hatch, unless the team that you are going up against, your opponents, the defenders, are playing down below, they can find themselves gradually getting boxed out, especially if the attackers keep somebody up at Skylight, which we will see teams do. There are post-plant strategies where the attackers will deliberately leave somebody on the roof to watch the diffuser going down, especially if that diffuser is planted in a relatively default spot, which can be by the one pillar up above in Cocktail, or even by the bar by the back storage. So by back bar store, one of the most confusing callouts that exists in the game, by the way, and it scrambles my brain every single time, but very similar to where you're seeing on your screen right now, just on the left side of it. So, and that's exactly what happened to DZ. They got boxed out. Skies had to fight his way out of the back bar. Couldn't do it. He lost his fight to Fultz. Fultz leveled up with every single kill he got. He pushed from Piano. He pushed over towards Pixel Spot. He took control of Whitehall. He got swung on. He won the fight on that one as well. Hot and Cold, I think, was the last one that was still alive in that spot, playing on Goyo. But at that point, Space Station have Skylight control. They've got new balcony controller. They've got Heaven control. You are in a rough spot, and you have just lost ground. The only thing you could conceivably do is get below with a Nitro Cell, as we've talked about. But teams will usually set up flank drones to spot that and call it out well in advance.
Mint trying to test out his skills there with an early run out. Unfortunately, no one from SSG spawning on that quadrant of the map, so we're not going to get anything for that. Didn't really get detected, though, so SSG really none the wiser as to what just transpired there. And away from that, SSG quickly working to get themselves in from the 2 hatches on the roof, heading towards the 3rd floor. As you might expect, we've got the 3rd floor hold here from DZ, including the extended hold at Pixel. Going to be this time for Skies to play into. On his own regard here, he'll have to be careful. If he hears any utility coming his way, he's going to back away very quickly. There's that big red canister sitting on the back of the shield. If he's nearby, well, that's going to happen. It's going to blow up right in his face. Thankfully, it wasn't the case, and he's able to safely fall back further down the white stairs, where not only he's waiting, but as you can see from the silhouettes, there are 2 other players from DarkZero are also still holding Cocktail.
So SSG have just stormed on in and have that control over on the west side of the map. And they can do a lot of soft destruction work, and they'll likely continue to clear over towards back bar. And in that spot, they will come to a loggerheads with none other than Mint, who is playing by Cocktail. And he very likely has the hatch open to drop into laundry as well. The one that's going to be holding out, nope, the hatch is still closed, so Mint does not have an escape that he wants. The only person that was trying to keep the attackers at bay was none other than Eclipse, and he was playing over by the top of White. He's still there, anticipating a rappel in on White's stairs, as it's now Mint dying to Rampy, making me look foolish by the fact that I said the only other operator that you were going to see that would be brought with frag grenades would be a Yana. Well, there's a Nook on the board, and Rampy will need to do some more damage after he's taken out Mint. A minute to go for Space Station to pull off an execute, or alternatively have DZ hang on despite trailing in man count.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about the Nook yet. Obviously, this is brought in so rarely. This is definitely a little bit of a change up here from SSG, but seemingly it's worked pretty well so far. Allows them to get all the way through bar and pick up that opening kill. The problem is going to be, though, is if this fails to translate into anything, which so far is the case for SSG, great. They've got 3rd floor control, but they've been kind of given it considering there's less than a minute left when they take full control. Now they need to try and get down to the 2nd floor and get onto the site with a very low amount of time, and it's going to be a rough ask for them. at its minimum here. We can see, of course, the attempts to try and get down are just not really being led to much, but finally Bosco finds an opener. This should give the team a bit of confidence to play into it. They can't really play into it near white, though, and that's one of the big issues for them. But nonetheless, Canadian able to get very close and indeed confirm the plant just before he goes down. But that leaves only Bosco alive, who's been holding this top angle for so long. He's going to begin to chuck the frag grenades down because now why not? He's got to hold the post plant, but unfortunately for him, he only had one of them. That one that goes in the ground really just wastes time, takes the next duel, comes down on the losing end of it as well, as he'll be brought down to under 50 HP, but no one on counter defuse just yet, giving him 0 opportunities for a free kill, and he'll never even get it, as Hyper immediately takes him down as Hot and jumps on counter defuse, and he'll be able to complete that with plenty of excess time, giving DarkZero the retake for round number 8.
Well, he might not have been the flashiest player so far in this lobby or in the game thus far, but that is a hell of a play from Hyper, and you see exactly why he is known to be so consistent. Though the kill feed was largely owned by Hot and Cold, who's also been good on the objective play, so it's good to see that he's living up to the first part of his name since the mini major and not the second part. So, with that said, what did DZ do right? Well, they actually did a strategy that looked very similar to the reading defense that we saw from Space Station when they were on defense and DZ found themselves, where Skies had to basically do what Bosco was doing as the same operator in the same spot upstairs in Cocktail. And that was get the diffuser down and then keep somebody above to watch it. But you are telegraphing your play way early on by setting up a sledge upstairs. And they knew that Bosco was going to be in that spot. Now, the challenging part is hitting your shots to the sledge above, but it's challenging as an attacking team to try and dwindle those numbers of the defenders down before you can pull off that execute. You need to have somebody posted up in pillars. You need to make sure that laundry is cleared out. You might want to keep control of white stairs. And that's a big spread for a team like SSG after they get the diffuser down. They just weren't able to shore it up. And honestly, it really came down to that retake from DZ catching them off guard and Hot and Cold being able to pick off 2 very, very quickly before allowing Hyper to finish things off.
So we'll now see the site switch here for DarkZero as they'll head down into a first floor defense, trying their luck out on kitchen. Does look like the defense from the setup phase at least looks relatively horizontal here, but I'm assuming there's at least a little bit of play that's going to be happening upstairs as well here, because this is something that you kind of need to do on most sites for this map. And indeed, we're going to see Hyper playing around the white stairs, but it's a pretty passive hold, meaning that SSG is going to have pretty good negotiating rights over the entire third floor and a large majority of the second floor, pretty much right from the get-go here. Won't have to waste a huge amount of time droning everything out.
We'll see what really gets brought to the table, because SSG have been using Rampy in that 6th pick, flex pick style, now going from Nook on to Ying. And there is a bunker buster sort of play that Ying is capable of doing if there's a Wamai and a Jaeger on the board. When her Candelas go off, each of those separate flashbangs from a Candela will take out 1 charge of an ADS or a magnet. So you can clear out heaps of that gadgetry from both Jaeger and Wamai with just 1 Candela, freeing up the rest of your team. Additionally, Ying was buffed semi-recently to give her smokes. And while smokes aren't really in vogue at the moment, they are still incredibly strong at being able to cut off lines of sight, being able to obscure a possible plant going down, or even just simply redirecting the attention of your opponents. I'm very curious to see what Rampy is going to be able to do with Ying here, but now that I've talked at length about this, Rampy is probably going to be the first person to die, and we're not going to see a single Candela get thrown out. That's just the way it goes.
We did see quite a bit of smoke play in the match that Stokes and I casted on Monday. In fact, obviously didn't really involve either of these teams, so a little bit irrelevant to what's currently going on, but there's still quite a bit of room for it to be used if it's properly utilized. Just there's been teams really haven't been prioritizing it as of late, so we'll see if it comes into the picture for this round right here, if SSG are going to try to bring it into the fray whatsoever. Other than that, though, things are pretty much going as you might expect at this point in a round here. SSG taking that easy top control, as I had mentioned that they would get before. Not much contest coming in from Hyper either. He's fallen all the way back to VIP now and is going to be holding from the inside of here. They do know he's here, but still, it's not the easiest thing in the world to get rid of him. He doesn't have a shield to support, as you might often see, and as a result of that, we're going to see a Candela thrown right at him. He looks right at it, meaning he's not going to see anything for that fight. An easy opening frag for Rampy, and this is going to transition into SSG trying to get some whiskey control for themselves, too.
Rough spot to be in if you're Hyper. Anybody that's played this game outside of professional play knows exactly what that feels like, by the way, and it is not a good feeling at all. Essentially just waiting to die at this point. So still 2 Candelas remaining for Rampy. Another kill for SSG, this time for Canadian, as they'll tase away at the Hibana. Going for the plant, Skies falls. Mint has been downed, and Eclipse will just activate as much of that Evil Eye as he can. Pulling the Eld out of his back pocket. He's trying to stop Canadian, but he gets finished off almost. No, it is. It's a flawless round. They didn't finish off a single member of SSG, and with that, Space Station grab match point on, or map point rather, on DZ's map.
SSG definitely scaring me a little bit there once again when it came down to the timing, but that's often kind of the nature of the beast for Siege right now, as you see these very low timed executes, and that's exactly what we got from SSG once again. Also very smart of them once more to save the Ying play up until the very end for an incredibly important 1v1, having to isolate out the VIP player so that they could first of all easily get into Freezer if that was going to be their goal, and not only that but also start transitioning over towards Whiskey and then working for better control of the main entrance into Kitchen too. That really was the start of the chain and the start of the end, unfortunately, for DZ there, as once they had lost control, very much like that third floor site, at that point in the round, there was going to be no chance of them getting that control back due to the positions that they were playing into, and slowly but surely SSG just fully swarm in to take that control away from DZ and win out the round, as you said, in flawless fashion. So they're certainly going to be feeling good about themselves as we head into what could be the final round of the first map.
Now, I really liked what we saw at a Space Station and how they took command of delivery and then pushed from there. A lot of teams have left open Freezer as of late, and it's been the default strategy for most defenders when it comes to Kitchen, because you'll leave open some of that Freezer wall, and then you'll keep somebody over in VIP. You'll keep somebody possibly over by watching White Stairs, likely playing behind a deployable shield, maybe keep somebody at Whiskey or playing over by Brown Stairs, or you can even rotate down if you've got somebody playing on that third or second floor, because the Brown Stairs are still there and you can hop down on the second floor from pillars quite easily. The problem is that when you bring a tool like a Ying, you are going to lose so much of that control. The player that you have that's playing in VIP isn't going to last too long unless there is an appropriate amount of ADSs or magnets in the way, and as we could see, they certainly were not. They were cleared out earlier on, and Rampy was able to take full advantage of Hyper playing in that spot. Additionally, with Hyper gone, very swiftly SSG pushes into Freezer and then takes 2 gunfights, with Canadian getting a member of DZ who swung, leaving a 3v5 that was near unwinnable. And the remaining members of DarkZero were far back in Bakery, trying to hold off a Freezer push. Funny enough, Space Station had some of their own struggles in a matchup all the way back in stage 1, where they got boxed out and pushed back to Bakery, and they weren't able to do too much with it. So they at least have the last laugh, because what they ended up falling victim to, well, now they're able to capitalize on. Skies gets droned out, and he misses the fall, and he'll get reset. That is actually quite coincidental and a stroke of luck for him, as he was only at 1 HP, so he'll get some health back in the process. But that is a tough spot to find yourself in. And you can see that there's some panic setting in for DarkZero as they scramble to relocate amidst this action happening with half of the round to go.
He realized at the moment he dropped too that it was either a mistake or he did that on purpose, because you can see by his movement there. He's like, oh no, something's gone wrong here. And yeah, thankfully it ends up working out in his favor, as you mentioned. Either way, though, he's brought back into the fight. Now, still maintaining controls over all the important areas right now. DarkZero are not out of this fray just yet, despite taking that hefty amount of early damage. DZ also has some control on the third floor still to bargain for, though how long he's going to be able to stay alive is yet to be seen. It's Mint trying to hold this position. Eclipse is still supporting from second to third floor White, but Fultz doesn't care about that smoke grenade that was thrown down the hallway. He's just going to rush right past it and use the position to be able to take out Mint. Rampy is also going to find success as he eliminates Hot and Cold, and that brings it down to a 5v3.
Not ideal for DZ, especially with Skies being on low HP. He's got the Roni in hand, so he's going to have to make these shots count before going back onto reload. Rampy again being the flex pick here, and he's going to be on Twitch as the Ash of Fultz is ready over by Reading, and he provokes a fight with Skies, but he gets taken out before the Nitro Cell can go off. Fultz droned on in. The advantage for Space Station continues to grow, as it could be another flawless round for them, and with it, they would end up taking the map. They have 30 seconds left to pull this one off, Blue.
Coming down to the wire here, it seems, for DZ. Their players trying so hard to stay alive and more importantly, delay the eventual push from SSG. But Canadian once again coming out on top of the fight right there. Picks up the first kill of the end here and now leaves it all on to Eclipse, who's not going to be able to survive for very long either. Bosco finishes things off for SSG and they take control of map number 1 here on Cafe, putting them ahead in the series and only one more map away from an overall victory on today's match.
Now, it's hard to explain the importance of this matchup without, of course, talking about what I would imagine is frustration on DarkZero's part with Skies and Hyper being unable to play a couple of rounds, and who knows how they would have gone, because 2 rounds in particular, DZ suffering an untimely disconnect and then going on to lose both of those rounds. Now, they did at least win one where they lost Hyper, but I'd say that's more of an outlier than anything else. This match was quite close until it changed sides, and it just didn't seem like DZ had anything in the tank. On defense, DZ really struggled with the aggression that Space Station brought. Space Station took map control in areas and had the appropriate tools to flush out the members of DZ that were playing in those areas. And as I said, it kind of looked like DZ was very uncoordinated and were scrambling to find their footing when SSG was breaking into the map. I don't know if this is a pattern that's going to hold, given that Villa is up next and it tends to be an even more structured map. But that is bad news for DarkZero, a team that looked so succinct and in tune with itself just last week.
Even worse news for DarkZero is going to be the fact that that was their own map pick back there at Cafe, and the map they're about to head into, they've only got a 33% win rate on in recent history. We'll have to see how all of that pans out, of course, as we're going to take a short break before we get into map number 2. Stick with us, guys, as when we come back, we're going to be getting ourselves ready for the second map between these two teams. It's DarkZero and SSG here at the NA League.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Jackie Jing with Veli and Jesse, and let's get right to the highlights of map 1 and have our analysts break it down. Veli's excited. He's like, yes.
I'm so excited. You know what? Jesse is looking kind of good right now with his prediction because Space Station Gaming, he started off so hot. You saw the great plays coming out with Pink and Nate at the beginning, but then dropping down from the skylight and trying to make a comeback. You saw Skies get a 3K. DarkZero started to fight back. But it was just a little bit too late, right, Jesse? Because Space Station Gaming, they seem to just be, I'm not going to say perfect, but man, those boys came to play today.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there were some solid rounds from DarkZero. Obviously, they got a little bit unlucky in this matchup too, and you know that's always going to be an asterisk on this. But Space Station did play fantastic, and you can't take that away from them. I think there were some really highlight level plays. The top floor, post plant from both teams was a little bit weak. We saw that just there on the previous highlight. Nobody really too able to hold down that reading room attack. This one was so close. I thought Canadian was going to die to that because he'd be shot by the Evil Eye so much already, but. Yeah, this entire map has a lot of really great plays. Faults was my MVP from it. He had so many aggressive moments that I just loved to see out of him.
And we're going to be talking about that in a little bit, but first I just want to talk about Space Station Gaming as a whole. We have your statistics up right now. We just were talking about Faults there. You got 9 kills up on the board, but really just a very strong showing from Space Station Gaming in general. And Veli, they just seem to be one step ahead of DarkZero this whole map. I also thought that they did a really good job of stifling hot and cold.
Yeah, and they started it off with the pick and ban phase, right, Jackie? So, okay, I talk about hot and cold a lot, but it's mostly because I'm really in love with the way that he's been playing with Maverick lately. He's been on top of the leaderboards, right? So, banning Maverick at the beginning forced hot and cold to pick another hard breach. We know Thermite and also Habana, they're not just as good as Maverick, right? Especially with those 2 frag grenades that Maverick has. So we saw instances where Hot and Cody was pretty much slowed down, especially around pillars, trying to open up the wall. Usually he would handle it on his own, but he had to get his team involved, which takes extra time off the clock, which is something DarkZero didn't need. I felt for him on that one. But then there were some good things coming from DarkZero. Yes, they had a few drops. It was very unfortunate, but the one drop that mattered was when they dropped down from Skylight. Skies got a 3K, dominated everybody. I love heads-up plays like that because you don't expect that from DarkZero, but once again, they are one of the best attacking, if not the best attacking team in all of NA. I got to double-check my notes.
Yeah, I thought that like the Skylight drop particularly was a nice like surprise play to come in from DarkZero, and we've seen them innovate on this map before. Really did seem like when they were bringing up new stuff and trying some experimental things against Space Station Gaming, that's where they started to find some round wins.
And, you know, you were talking about Skies. We were talking about Fultz, some exceptional play we saw from both teams. But I do want to focus on Fultz a little bit because, you know, Jesse, you were saying a short time ago that he was playing aggressively and it was working so well for him.
Yeah, I mean, on the defense, first of all, in that first half, Fultz was not afraid to get aggressive. He was peeking windows. He was going for really, really aggressive stuff, and it worked for him all the time. You saw him, yeah, for sure. You saw him go 4-0 on the entry stat just when we had those statistics up, so that sort of embodies what he was doing. And then on attack as well, you know, he was playing that Ash, making sure that he runs through this map and just hitting every single shot. I thought it was surprising how confident and aggressive he was. I love to see that from Fultz, and he really made this map his own. I was really impressed by what I saw from him.
And I'm going to be honest, Jackie, and the special thing about what Fultz did, and it's kind of why Jesse touched on it a lot right there, right? When you have smokes and maestros and echoes on the board, they're not going to be your most aggressive operators. Fultz got in their face. And him being able to do that, get on his cams and help out his teammates, that was just so amazing to see. If Space Station can keep this up, whew, it's going to be trouble for DZ.
Yeah, certainly. And let's get to our community poll because those results are in. And the question is, who is going to frag out more? Get those kills, Hyper or Rampy? And it ended up being 50-50,
Wow.
you guys.
Wow.
Right down the middle there. Yeah, both exceptional players. But, all right, gentlemen. Final thoughts going into map 2, Veli?
You know what, Jackie? I made a prediction before the map started, and I'm going to take it away. You know why? I'm a curse, and I'm not going to curse DarkZero. These are two amazing teams, and I just want them to go ahead and play at their best without me cursing one of them. So I'm going to revoke my prediction, all right? I can't wait to see second and third maps.
Okay, so you're revoking your prediction,
I'm just here to
Jesse?
enjoy the games.
Okay. And Jesse, I'm assuming you're sticking with what you predicted.
Yeah, convenient that prediction revoking comes right after DarkZero lost their best map.
Jesse.
Oh my
you
goodness.
know I'm a curse, man.
Yeah, sure thing.
You guys are so silly. But actually, gentlemen, we are ready to roll here. So I'm going to toss it over to our casters, Intero and Blue, and get map 2 underway. Super excited. All right, Intero, Blue, take it away, gentlemen.
Thank you very, very much. He didn't revoke his endorsement. He rescinded it.
Yeah.
That's the correct
That's what he meant,
word.
apparently. So.
I mean, John, what do you expect from an analyst? Let's be real here.
I mean, the good news is we can leave it to them to fight on Twitter now, because Jesse's Twitter's actually been unbanned as far as I'm aware. So that's the good news for him anyway.
That's true. And then Veli saying in our VoIP server, I really like your turtleneck. Thank you very much, Veli. I really appreciate that. Now, obviously, he did not actually say that.
He also said, I hope it comforts you, you know?
Yeah, that was it. Is very, very kind about it. When we look towards a map like Villa, this is not a particularly strong map for DarkZero. You mentioned this right as we were watching Cafe end and before we threw to the analyst desk here. This is going to be really tough. It's a very strategic map. DarkZero have been a much more strategic team as of late, and I have no doubt that they are capable of bouncing back after a very disappointing Cafe, and I think it's very fair to say it's disappointing. But DZ starting on attack, they're going to have to make a statement really early, because if they don't, I fear that they are going to let it get into their head and Space Station are going to continue to cruise towards a potentially easier victory than we thought they were going to have at the onset of this matchup.
All right, guys, well, we're going to find out about all that very soon here as we're heading into the first round right now, or the bans at least for the map. It's Villa time, folks. Time to see if Space Station is going to be able to keep the train rolling in their favor and send it out to space for a win today, or will DarkZero bounce back and take us to a third and final map on Coastline? First ban's already coming in. Ace is going to be knocked out. Not a massive surprise there. He's been being banned out in a good, I would say, like 80% of games so far since he's been allowed in.
Nomad taken out by Space Station. She's an operator that we saw a little bit of on Cafe and is an operator that tends to be quite comfortable at home on Space Station's attacking lineup. Joining them will be Wamai, who was banned out by SSG before. So SSG obviously don't want to give a secondary operator like Wamai, like Jaeger to this team. They're going to leave Jaeger up instead. And Echo, who has not been removed from play as per a gentleman's agreement, he will be the other ban. This is going to leave Pulse up. This is going to leave Mira up. This is going to leave Valkyrie up. There is a lot of room to maneuver here for the defenders with these bans.
The Echo ban making perfect sense here too. We didn't really see it get used all that much by DZ themselves, and SSG was using it, I think, pretty much, if not every single round that they played on defense. There might have been one or two that they left it out back at the beginning, but they were bringing in a lot, so that would make sense. And as usual, the Wamai ban, this is another map where there's specific set positions where Wamai can set himself up this map, you know, like top main stairs and a couple other spots too, and he can set up himself up for a lot of success if he's not properly disturbed. So better to just get that out of the way and not have to deal with that. Same philosophy there as the previous map. And now we can see how all this pans out, of course, as we're heading right into the first round, and it is going to be an aviation game start for DarkZero, as they'll be on defense first this time.
Oh wow, this is actually the first time that I've casted Villa since it's been reworked. And it got the darker treatment now. It's not as bright orange.
I think it's a lot easier to like spot out players and stuff like that is the main reason it was done. And it's
oh yeah, absolutely. You had too many skins that blended into the background, and I think this is a very good change. Obviously, when you're in the server itself and playing around with it, you might find that it could be a tad too dark, which then becomes an issue with the darker skins that you'd see, like the black skin that comes out, which is the white noise, I think, is the one that was.
I wouldn't know.
Blood Orchid? I can't remember. One of them is a black skin. It's either white noise or Blood Orchid. But anyway, that could make it particularly tough here. And oh, we've got a little bit of early action. Blue, 20 seconds, and Mint sees one of his Goyo shields blow up in front of his very eyes. Sound like he took a little bit of damage as well, and he's at 30 HP, give or take. That's going to be a bullet or two for most of these guns, sometimes even just one bullet, depending on the operator.
So he's still going to play in a pretty advanced position here, though. The good news is it generally isolates itself to be a headshot angle in a lot of fights, so he still might have a chance to get a frag off if he's got good positioning. His teammate's going to come in for assistance elsewhere on the map, though. That's Sky's finding the first pick against Rampy. I believe through a top-down angle as well. Able to take him out of the picture as he's investigating over there towards Library. DarkZero so far with a good chance of holding on to things. SSG still stuck on the first floor here right now. Have not cleared out. Goyo sitting on those main stairs. You can see Mint still waiting for his opportunity to strike, and it's not the only one either. You still deal with Skies at the top of the main stairs too, and he can assist even further with those toxic gas grenades that he's just thrown out. Nitro Cell to follow it up. That's not going to find anything.
There's a lot of utility being used to try to stop SSG's advance up those stairs. There's Candelas galore, and that's it. As I don't know that SSG have realized that they have all of this control, so they can continue to march unimpeded as we hit the halfway point of round number 1. Bosco's Candelas are gone, but a Toxic Canister and Nitro Cell were answered with from DarkZero. So both of these teams juggling what gadgetry they have at their disposal, secondary or primary. And it's going to make them all a little bit worse off when this execute comes in. DarkZero finds their very second kill. This time it's Fultz dying at the hands of Hyper, and then immediately a pocket Mira window will go up, allowing DarkZero a good vantage point into Aviator, into study.
That's something, of course, that DarkZero necessarily, or SSG has to say, we're necessarily expecting to deal with, but they're going to have to deal with it either way. Xkyrus to go on top of it here. Should take it out pretty quickly, deal with that issue, but at the same time, we're going to see a Nitro Cell thrown out, and some of the excess damage is enough to eliminate Bosco. Thinking Nade also taking some heavy damage from another fight over on the bookcase angle here. He gets brought down to right around 25. SSG just can't bargain for any fights that they can control here, and the worst part is DarkZero, now that they know they have such a huge mana advantage, they're not going to give them these fights anymore either, unless absolutely necessary here. Thinking Nade going to get chunked down by the shotgun right there from Skies. Canadian does find a response to that over towards Study, but it's a small gesture at this point. Considering we're down to 20 seconds, Canadian doesn't even have a lot of good intel at this point as to where any of the remaining 4 players are. Well, except for that one, of course. Sees the Maestro, can even see the barrel right now, with only 5 shots left. Just hoping that someone swings out so they can at least guarantee the 1-for-1 trade more than anything else at this point. As the round is gone, DarkZero are going to maintain solid control of Aviation and Games and take their first defensive round here on Villa.
So SSG's push that comes from the bottom floor gets met by DarkZero and the setup that DZ had done quite well. And when you are defending these bomb sites, you know that the general feel of an attack will focus somewhat down below. That is where a Sledge or a Zofia or a Buck will go. And as an operator that we talked about that has largely fallen off of the map in terms of pick rate, Buck still has quite a bit of use when it comes to attacking Aviator in games, because Sledge doesn't bring the same kind of vertical play down below. You can't throw the sledgehammer at the ceiling above you. So you don't really have a lot of options to try and dislodge the defenders that are playing in their various spots. And a lot of the places that you're going to see the defenders playing in on those two bomb sites are relatively common, and Buck will be able to pinpoint them and tear them open. Now, you might not be able to secure a kill off of it, but you can move the defenders away. And with a team like SSG, who we saw in Cafe, were very strong with how they droned in, and then off of that information, they were able to flush out defenders and take them out. Buck is a very pivotal operator at doing just that, because not only do you have the drones working in that way, but also Buck's skeleton key is going to be tearing up the floor under those defenders. Also, with a mirror being in play, Buck taking out the floor means that you're going to be able to pop those black mirrors a lot more effectively, or even get possible gadgets that are playing in that spot. If there's a Goyo on the board, you might be able to see a Goyo shield from down below and not have to risk throwing something at it or shooting an ass charge at it directly. Now, Buck was good for one round. He's fallen off for Space Station. So they've decided to change up their comp actually quite a fair bit. I wonder if it's going to be spearheaded here by Thinking Nade on the Lion. It's a kitchen defense for DZ now and here in round number 2.
Lion's seen quite a bit of use, I think, on this map, specifically when it comes to trying to stop or otherwise delay roamers trying to make plays against the big bulk of the attacking lineup, something where SSG got caught up by a little bit on that previous round. So hopefully this will give Thinking Nade an opportunity to circumvent that, if not freeze players in positions and allow for SSG to set up kills from that. Either way, though, a usual start for the attackers here. A lot of emphasis going onto the walk-in closet and the master bedroom area right at the start. We do also have Fultz with a little bit of pressure being employed downstairs too, but you can see this is not a one-sided affair. Skies is way over in study right now, hoping he can get an angle onto someone back out on that master balcony. Not the case this time, though, as it seems the large majority of the SSG roster is holding on the north side, not the south side, where Skies would have been able to pick up a frag or two from his position back in study. Either way, he just rotates back into a normal position by statuary, and the round continues on as usual, with SSG still droning out here just to make sure they have absolute safety in hopping to the inside of master before they actually attempt to do it. They're in a bad position when they do so. That could be an easy swing from a defender and lead to a premature death of someone on SSG, something that cost them quite heavily in the last round.
Skies has been droned out, by the way, inside a statuary, and he can just continue to hold that spot and force Space Station to have to use some of their gadgetry to reveal him. Now, you're going to see Hyper get spotted as the EE1D gives his position away, but he's only able to toss out one gas canister before going back down Astro stairs. He's lost the safety of that deployable shield, and SSG have been able to get him off of the spot. This means that if you want to provoke a fight with him, you're going to have to descend those stairs, in which case Hyper is more than prepared to win that. SSG have the control that they wanted upstairs in statuary. There's 2 Banshees that are at play there, and they're not going to need to worry too much. They'll go on to drone work to do some discovery, as neither team has really lost anything so far.
Attackers have located a bomb.
Well, under a minute remaining, though, and you now have to worry once again for the health of SSG's attack here, but thankfully, worry not for too long, as they are able to get a nice kill on a hot and cold. That's a lot of the intel game coming from the other side of the floorboards, now gone from DarkZero, but at the same time, well, time itself is getting low here, and doesn't seem to be too much of an issue for SSG. Quickly taking out all of these major concern points, most notably the flank counter right there coming out as hot and cold is eliminated, along with Skies getting caught back at 92. Another kill is found here, and really the only issue is their transition from the second to the first floor, which with these 3 kills, this shouldn't be too much of an issue any longer, but nonetheless, still going to be challenged as Mint picks up the first trade against SSG. Hyper is going to continue that forward. Only 3 seconds remain here, but a successful plant attempt is coming down. Hyper will at the very minimum be able to revive Mint, bringing him back into the fray with 20 more HP to try and come back from here now on the retake. But members of SSG are quickly establishing top positions, an area where DarkZero may not be able to properly contest if the need should arise for it. Hyper will complete his roam around through tarps, work his way back into the site. He's looking for that top-down angle, but it's yet to really try to do anything as of yet here against the members of DarkZero. That's going to change now, though. Hyper tries to go for the counter defuse, is immediately taken down by Canadian, and he also gets the follow-up on Mint to end the round and cause a 1-1 scoreline to come before us.
So SSG pushes Hyper off of that spot. They get Astro, they get statuary and trophy control. Then they use their drone work to find and pinpoint Skies and remove him from the play. What the problem was for DarkZero there was that they had conceded that entire top floor and they didn't try successfully. They didn't even try, period, let alone do so successfully to regain that top floor. Instead, I think the call from DarkZero was made was, let's give them that second floor, hope that we've used enough utility, hope that we've used enough of their drones, and then force them to commit to a plant where we can stop them in their tracks. The problem was that Space Station's reign of terror on that second floor extended down below, a lot of that being quarterbacked by the Sledge, who was breaking open as much of the floor as possible, and they were able to capitalize on two separate players from DarkZero who weren't aware of that spot. Eclipse and Hot and Cold were not going to last too long, despite them playing down on that first floor. They get spotted from the second floor. And DZ's choice, conscious or otherwise, to not re-engage on that second floor ends up being a big part of their undoing. That left the remaining members of DarkZero far enough back where they were playing by bikes, they were playing by the kitchen door, and yes, they had the wall opened up, and it looked like Mint might have been able to make something happen as he picked up one kill, but you can plant in that part of the bomb site without being spotted from the angle that DZ was at. Barring a really nice nitro cell throw or chaining gas canisters together, DZ could not stop the plant from going down because it was a 2v3 and they didn't have top floor control. So all they could do was try to retake, and I think there was some hesitation on their part, and then they just ran out of time and ended up making mistakes and they got picked off.
Also, the death of, I forget if it was Hyper that was on the Jaeger last round, but specifically whoever was on their Jaeger in the previous round, he didn't get taken down until very, very close to the execution point. I think that there was a lot of potentially false security that DarkZero had for themselves. The fact that they were assuming that that flank at 90 was going to be able to find a major impact, either in the rotate downstairs or in the attempt to take the site, with him being able to probably take out the player that was going to be holding up top in the post play and then kind of flip that role the other way around. Obviously, that didn't happen. And, you know, another issue that DarkZero's been dealing with here is by the time they realized the fact that that wasn't going to happen, they didn't really have time to rotate another player back up there and retake that position or try to just retake upstairs overall up until the very end of it when they just had to split their final two players. So some unfortunate turn of events there from DarkZero, and unfortunate timing on the loss of a few of their players makes that situation very, very hard to deal with, and ultimately a lost round. Well, beyond that, though, we're into the third round now, and the play is going to be a little bit different here. SSG, of course, having to deal with this very annoying top-down control that's going to be played out from back over in Aviation and Games. Looks like SSG is taking the route to try and ignore that as much as possible by pushing in and trying to plant through those two soft walls on either side of the fireplace and living room.
This is an unorthodox bomb site for most teams as well. Seldom played, but oftentimes quite successful for the defenders because you don't have a large enough sample size on it, and the attackers don't have the strats often enough to be able to poke through whatever the defense sends at them. And with a team like DZ, they are very innovative on the way that they hold these bomb sites. So don't be too surprised if you see SSG collide with a brick wall. Now, the one thing that SSG has going in their favor, two things rather, is that A, the gas canisters for Eclipse are all gone and there's still a minute left. And two was the Ying that was in play, but Eclipse swings on up, realizing that he doesn't have the gas canisters, so he just needs to take the fight himself. It pays off big time. A refrag from Canadian, but a rough spot for Eclipse as he gets chased out of bikes before re-engaging, and the Lion will push on up. But you're going to have to really hurry now. He catches the Lion off guard, taken out, as action just continues with relentless fury.
Some really good stuff there from Eclipse, but unfortunately no one else on DarkZero really stepping up to the plate in that round, now putting it down to this 1vx scenario, which is very quickly going to get closed out on by SSG. Great stuff from them. Great initiation to get into the site. It's always the hardest part of attacking the site, is getting past those two soft walls, and they do it without really struggling all that much. Like I said, Eclipse really their only obstacle there, as he's able to pick up 2 kills before he ends up going down. But without anyone else to successfully block off the main route of attack, SSG just swing right in, get their diffuser onto the ground, and close out without too much of a worry.
I had speculated that we were going to see, what did I say? SSG run into a brick wall. Well, the problem is that when you're bringing a Ying and a Lion, there are a lot of annoying things that you need to deal with as a defending team that you might not have full ability to stop. And it's another 6th pick from SSG onto this Ying. And if they can clear out all the ADSs from Jaeger, well, Mai is staying banned so far in this matchup. There's going to be nothing to stop those Candelas from going off and causing maximum amounts of confusion and, well, also blindness, I suppose, under the bomb site. And the other thing, too, with SSG is that they are using the Lion and the Ying to flush out off-site control. And if they can do that without using too much of the gadgetry and squandering it, they can then turn it towards the bomb site where DZ tends to be a little bit more blocked in. SSG have now stitched together 2 rounds in a row and did so relatively convincingly, taking control of the periphery before pushing on in. Left Eclipse utility starved to try to take matters into his own hands, but SSG were just a little bit too fast, and Eclipse couldn't carry the team through that round. Back upstairs to Aviator and Games, as this was the very first bomb site that came out and is so far the only one that DZ has successfully defended. That is troubling for them because Villa tends to be among the most favorable maps to the defenders. And right now, if DarkZero can only count on this one bomb site, that means that they are more likely to lose the first half, which is so important that they don't do that, given that they are already trailing in terms of map count and they lost their map of Cafe just before this.
Yeah, certainly going to be a bad omen, especially if we don't see the follow-through come up on the site that was already won for themselves here. But DarkZero have got a pretty good track record when it comes to this site. Had a pretty convincing win back on it in the first round, so hopefully they can rely on that same state of play to repeat those same successes again, although things are immediately going to be a little bit different as SSG is no longer going for the first to second floor clear with a little bit of pressure coming into study on the side. This is almost entirely going to be a master side clear for SSG right now, going north to south instead, looking to try and get control through these avenues. In fact, you can already see Fultz all the way through to top red stair and connector, and he's not alone either. Thinking nade on Thinking nade on the Lion right there, and a few other players are going to be grouping up with him over the next few seconds to take even further control here, moving all the way up to 90 now, and possibly trying to take out the weapons vault wall here over the next few seconds. Yeah, at least poking a hole in it here with the Hibana.
Wonder if there's another impact available. It looked like there was, and Canadian was anticipating it, so second set of X-Kairos will go out, and I don't think that second impact was particularly successful at all, and no, it wasn't. So a portion of the wall opened up inside a vault, and with it, Eclipse will have to scatter, as will the rest of DarkZero. And while that Hibana opening may not be suitable for any of the members of Space Station to march through, it is a loss of control of a very important artery into this defense for DarkZero. You cannot play with impunity inside a vault the same way you could before. Now they might lose a mirror window as well, as you can't really get any of those X-Kairos, and even a single one going off will mean that you surrender that part of the wall. In goes the smoke canisters, and now in go the Candelas too, with the Lion charge detecting all the members of DZ. Diffuser goes down, and I cannot imagine this is particularly fun to deal with. An upside down repel from Thinking Nade nets him 2 big kills, John. And it is all over in this particular round, but the crying.
Yeah, DarkZero really just not much that they can do against that execute, it seems. After SSG are able to get control of top red there, they have their path to work into the site and try to go for the plant attempt. It works out well for them. They're now in, and look at this post plant. There's not really going to be an easy way to get across this due to the plant position. SSG just tear apart any attempts from DZ to retake that one, and very much earn themselves a flawless round out of that great strategy for the attack.
So, I guess the strategy that can be employed here, and it will probably be much to the chagrin of those watching, as we know how much the community at large tends to love Lion and Ying, especially when they are combatants in-game. If you're playing ranked, quick match, unranked, even customs with your friends, you know, going up against a Ying and a Lion don't particularly make for enjoyable gameplay, even though they are very good at what they do, and Space Station is using them almost perfectly to stop DarkZero. Now, there's no Lion that's going to be in play this time, but the Ying will remain as the 6th pick comes out, and it's a Thatcher. So things might be a little bit more ordinary as to how Space Station is going to execute on this kitchen defense from DZ. I want to take some time to praise DarkZero, but so far in this particular matchup, there really hasn't been that much to focus on in terms of positivity. A lot of the guns on DZ have gone quiet. They've looked overwhelmed, possibly tilted at what had happened earlier on Cafe, and no doubt they're going to be on their back foot because they didn't win their map. And not only did they not win their map, they got trounced 7-3. Villa is now shaping up to be a beating for DarkZero yet again, and they're going to need to dig really deep here because they're running out of time. Space Station on attack on Villa have now, at worst, tied the first half. That is a colossal achievement, and it does not bode well for DarkZero through the remainder of this map. There's still time, but they're running out of it very quickly.
Yeah, the only real positive thing we can say about DarkZero goes back to round number 1, but it's discounted by the fact that we saw it all immediately get countered out by SSG when they went back to that same site yet again, and we haven't seen any of the successes from their initial win translate over into any of the other bomb sites they've tried to play onto just as of yet. So DarkZero really struggling to find a footing here on the defensive half of Villa. SSG once again going to be at it here for the top-down attack as they're going to be up against the kitchen defense once more from DZ. SSG with a very early focus on taking out all of the reinforcements defending the trophy and statuary extended hold that is currently being manned most notably by Skies, but there's also some other players nearby or in the general area trying to give info to Skies or in some other way help out here.
One stylistic choice that we've seen out of Hyper is that he's been running the FMG instead of the shotgun, and I do think that falls back onto the way that they want to use him to hold this position. He's not going to be taking particularly close engagements, and if he is, as long as he can control that SMG-11, well, he'll be well equipped to do just that. He'll get chain stunned, but at least he'll fight back, taking out Fultz, as SSG tried to push up an astronomy and aren't capable of doing that. And Hyper behind this deployable shield with gas canisters in spades can at least hold SSG back for a considerable time. Only one canister remains, but there's an escape hatch there for Hyper as they throw 2 drones at him from SSG, and now another body is ready. But a call out made, and Eclipse will seize the opportunity, blowing Rampy sky high in bathroom.
Some great play being made here. Hyper notably catching Bosco just at a moment's notice as he tries to fall down there. He's not going to get that opportunity yet again. So that leaves it all on the Thinking Nade and Canadian now. Thinking Nade going to work himself in through basement and eventually work himself up the pantry stairs, I do believe, whereas Canadian will take a more traditional route and look for other options to get into the site. Beautiful hold, though, from DarkZero, knowing that SSG were more than likely going to play into that master push once again. Worked awesomely to counter that back out and force them into the position they're currently in, trying to work around it, but they may just be doing it. Thinking Nade with the first pickup for himself, but it's going to be short-lived, though, as Hot and Cold runs down those same pantry stairs, takes out Thinking Nade, and leaves this all on the Canadian, who's just been revealed there by the Banshee. He knows he's being pushed, just doesn't know where it's from, and unfortunately, that will lead him to his death as well. Hot and Cold finishes things off, and we finally get that second round on the board for DZ.
Yeah, you could say, where was he getting pushed from? Well, it actually looked like 3 separate angles, John. And he was getting a very tender calf massage from the Banshee as it wubbed away, giving away his spot, not just in terms of audio cues, but also slowing him down. And as good of a player as Canadian is, you're not going to be able to combat 3 separate players at DZ. I think it's fair to say all 3 of them probably with a little bit better mechanical aim than Canadian, as well as having cover at their disposal. So when I mentioned earlier in the round that they needed to make a course correction, they were running out of time, etc., that round in particular was very big for DZ because it at least guarantees that there is a possibility of you tying up the first half. You essentially reset the clock and you start out with both of you switching sides, DZ on attack, SSG on defense, back at 0-0. As both teams would be 3-3, you've essentially accomplished nothing. Neither team has accomplished anything. It's still a victory for SSG, I think, because they've taken 3 rounds here on attack on Villa, and they will have a favorable side after the split, but it's the best that DZ can hope for. Now, back up to Aviator Games we go. You mentioned that the lone bright spot before that round concluded was their successful defense on round number 1. DZ will have to replicate that. They didn't have the best time on this same Bob site just 2 rounds ago. Round number 4, they got flattened by a Ying Lion combo, Thinking Nade on upside down repel, the smokes and candelas cutting off half of the bomb site, along with DZ being unable to rotate through Vault because of work that had been done earlier by the Hibana. DZ had nowhere to go, and they were essentially paralyzed in the bomb site, waiting for SSG to pull off the objective play, which they did. This time, if you look at SSG's lineup, they have the Ying, but they're not bringing the Lion. So they're going to be employing very different tricks this time. And I'm curious to see where Thinking Nate is going to post up.
More importantly here for DarkZero will be if they're able to properly resist the initial push from SSG when it finally starts to roll. And it does look a lot more like what we saw to them from the first round right now, trying to take that first floor control and then eventually bargain their way up either main stairs or red to then take the site from there. Obviously the red push worked out way better for SSG, but the usual state of play is definitely going to lean over towards what they did back in round number 1 there. There's a very good chance that they get countered out here if they tried to do exactly what they just did back in round number 4, again here in round number 6. That might explain why the play is a little bit more hesitant this time from SSG, and we don't necessarily see them being kind of as gung-ho to repeat the same thing over towards Master there.
One thing that I wanted to make mention of a couple rounds ago that I'm glad we're seeing right now is the Warden pick. Now, if you recall correctly, SSG was getting run over by E United with Grixer being on Ying way back in stage 1. And what did SSG do? They immediately ran a Warden to try and stop the Ying from being as potent as possible. It's taken DZ quite a while to bring out the Operator. I think they were hoping to just try to play according to their setup and not have to break glass in case of emergency. But in this case, they break out the glasses and the glasses get broke. Womp womp. Rampy takes him out. Rampy was the very first casualty back in round number 1 through some of the holes that were opened up in the hallway. But Rampy's play from down below, he gets his revenge, and SSG has that opening pick.
I don't even know if there was any soft destruction to do that either. That looks like a pretty impressive shot either way. We are going to see, well, first of all, guys, of course, with the audio bug, we'll work to fix that as soon as we can. But SSG looking to wrap themselves around bookcase corner now and start getting closer and closer to the site here. Destroy the reinforced shield, the Goyo shield, more notably. This is going to force Mint and even Sky's back, or Clips, excuse me, back a little bit here, as they kind of sit back and wait for SSG to make the first move. There's going to be pressure on their window at 90 as well, which is another thing they're going to have to worry about. Another reason why they have to fall back further. Bosco's going to get dealt with, though, by Eclipse still holding that hallway angle. So no longer going to be a worry in that respect. But Rampy will trade this back, taking out the very same player, eliminating Eclipse, and now opening up much greater play capability for SSG to start swinging up the main stairs.
Sky's only 2 bullets in that shotgun. He'll be hard pressed to hit his target, so a lot will be hinged upon the Jaeger, who gets flashed ever so slightly. Sky's with 1, putting those bullets to good use. He'll take down Rampy. Plant coming in from Canadian. They'll need to stop him. Hot and cold covered by Thinking Nade, so you're going to have to try to get the Hibana down. Thinking Nade dusted Canadian, taking damage, but the objective play is sound. They'll have to get to it as quickly as they can. Playing inside a study, down goes Canadian, and Fultz will need to wrap around the back of the bomb site. Just as he does so, he takes Skies down to 1 HP, but they've doubled up on him. DarkZero know they've got a clock working with. 26 seconds, 25 seconds. Can they finish him off? He's on the ground, and Fultz doesn't check it. What a miraculous clutch from DarkZero as Skies, the absolute rat. He's on the ground, and he plays it beautifully to tie things up. And we will hit the reset button at the half. Both teams 3-3.
So the prophecy comes true, and we do indeed see the comeback from DarkZero, bringing it all the way back to a 3-3 scoreline. Of course, Space Station getting very close to success there nonetheless. Unfortunately, just not enough space to work with as they were putting the diffuser onto the ground. So quite a few players get caught up in trying to get themselves in any type of safe post-plant position and never really were able to achieve that. If we're being real with ourselves, the first kill that Skies got, he actually probably would have been able to get that a little bit earlier if he had caught the player just a few seconds prior to that. But either way, SSG once again pushing it down to the limit on the timer. They do get it planted, but are just not able to establish strong enough positioning in order to win out any of those fights in the post-plant, letting DZ work their way back into the 2vx and eventually take back control to get that third round on the board. So we're going to be tied up here as we're getting ready to switch sides. Of course, just a quick rehost here while we look to fix our audio bug with the Observer and get back in game with the full sound spectrum.
Now, both teams are essentially going to have a timeout here to discuss what happens next. And it's actually very convenient timing that this happens because Space Station will want these couple minutes to go through how they're going to defend. DarkZero are going to want to try their hand at attacking. And if you look back at Cafe, DZ was much better at attack than defense. And this holds true by 1 round, mind you. But if you look at DarkZero across the board, their stats on attack have always been superior to just about everybody else's. Now, that did change a little bit at the mini major when DZ showed that their attack was not just their greatest strength, they could also do pretty well on defense. This time, DZ will have to be very well coordinated against a team that is looking sharp. Space Station's map, they are much more comfortable on Villa. They were working against the map on attack, if you believe that that conventional wisdom still holds true. And there were a couple rounds that really could have gone both ways. This has been much closer through 6 rounds than what we saw out of Cafe. DZ making some great changes through the mid round, which they weren't able to do all that well after a round or two of doing it quite well on Cafe. And this seems to be DZ finally getting their footing. Now, if that continues on to attack, we don't know. We can just speculate. But SSG is going to be moving on to defense. They're going to be very confident with how they're playing here. I don't think their fraggers are having any real difficulty. The same way that I would kind of point a finger at DZ and say that the whole team performing the way they have hasn't really allowed players like Hyper or Hot and Cold to pop off in the same way that we've seen out of somebody like Rampy or Fultz or even Thinking Nade. Does that mean that SSG is going to carry it through on defense? We don't know. But just looking at where we are right now, Space Station taking 3 rounds on attack on Villa when the operator bans are the way that they are, that's quite good. And it should set them up for success now that they're going on to defense.
Yeah, as you were saying, they're a little bit hard to predict what exactly to expect out of these teams, given we haven't seen any of the rounds in the second half play out yet. I think a lot of the pace of play is going to come down to really how Space Station wants to leverage their defense now that they're going to be jumping onto it. If we want to see a very active defensive play style, which you can absolutely do on a map like Villa, especially when you consider the basement routes that any roamers have to play into each other there. You know, if we're going to see those players try to constantly get into the way of DarkZero, this could be a very rough process of DZ trying to get to sites. Alternatively, it could be the opposite with the same type of play style from the folks over on SSG if they're trying to make aggressive plays and the individual players themselves are just not really up to the task and either failing in their fights or just not really able to find any, leaving them having to fall back in a mid or late round situation. It could be a very easy time for DZ if we end up going down that route. Alternatively, we could look for a very execution heavy style of play here if SSG want to go very turtly on the sites that you're allowed to do that on. All this depends on what exactly they want to bring to the table, and hopefully all that will be answered over the next few minutes here. We are back in the lobby now. We're just waiting on 1 to 2 more players to join, and then we got the team set up, and then we should be good to resume, folks. Hopefully just another minute or 2 here and we're good to go.
Yeah, we'll be getting in just a moment. And then once again, I don't have as good of a segue this time, by the way, but this is the Predator, the Triton 700. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Very nice.
This is a beastly laptop. So thank you very much for sending this my way. I was trying to think of a good segue for it, but this thing is, it's honestly about as powerful as my actual PC. It is, it blew me away when I fired it up, and I've used it. I've used it quite a bit. I know Stokes has been enjoying his as well. I heard him mention it on the broadcast on Wednesday. So thanks so much thanks for sending this my way. I have a push to talk key, so it's hard to lift it because it's very heavy.
Oh yeah, it's
very heavy. And I'm just like, I'm lifting weights with this
frame.
Thing. Yeah, I'm just here. Hold on a second. Let's put it right
there
front
you
and
go.
center.
Nice.
There we
Move
go.
your head back a bit too. Just give
I'm
it the
sure
full
people
stage.
probably want to hear from it and not me anyway. So
come up with a computer voice for next time.
I can do a robot voice on the
yes, I'm about to say
software,
you have
but I don't know. I feel like somebody at Ubisoft would get angry. But anyway, we're back in the game, John, and it's going to be SSG on defense. They're going to go downstairs to the unorthodox bomb site, Living Room Library.
I would have given you the robot voice. I just don't have one set up right now, so. Either way, yeah, Living Room Library is where we're going to work our way into here. This is a site that, as you were mentioning, is very much an off-site, and to this day, I think remains so, but it's starting to change. We're starting to see this one, especially in North America, used by teams more and more, and oftentimes, we're seeing here in the case of SSG, being used as a first pick to go right into their defensive half with. So, a lot of teams kind of starting to favor this one, starting to see the kind of variety of play you can make, especially with the strength of the aviation games hole that usually comes with this site and how hard that is for some attacking teams to get past. This can oftentimes be a really good starting point for the defenders, and SSG are hoping to make it so on this round.
And the sound has returned, by the way, in a defensive setup. Nice.
We're no longer muted.
Yes, that's correct. I can't believe it still happens. I honestly, like, it comes and it goes. It's like the tide, you know? Sound bug comes in, sound bug goes out. You can't explain that.
And the clash bug comes back sometimes with that. So
yeah, it's just it returns. And then Bikini Body gets to parade himself around Twitter and his love of Clash. But SSG are committing very heavily to this second floor roam, by the way. And, well, at least Fultz is. It looked like Rampy was going to join him, but he's not particularly interested in doing that. Thinking Nade is in... Oh, go to Thinking Nade, please.
Where is it?
Goodness gracious.
I didn't even get there.
This is despicable.
Some acrobatics right there.
Absolutely unbelievable play from Thinking Nade.
Well, we'll see how that pans out, because right now DarkZero are taking the path of least resistance when it comes to trying to deal with that aviation and games hold. We've got a large majority of their roster working their way in from the master side. It's not just on the third floor either. It looks like one player at least went in from kitchen downstairs on the second floor. So kind of just clearing out that whole quadrant of the map, excluding the basement, of course, and setting themselves up again for that same soft wall. I said it was a fireplace earlier. It's actually like a dresser or something in the middle there. So setting themselves up either way for the double wall push there by the soft walls, more than likely, as the timer will get lower and lower here. DarkZero have to be getting close to their execution point, or at least starting to set up for it relatively soon.
There's been no real action just yet, as you're still in the discovery phase for DZ. Fultz has taken a bit of punishment, but that's just about it. He's on the move down below, heading through piano and now an art studio, and he'll just watch by main stairs to see if somebody comes his way. Canadian has managed to evade any possible sights from the attackers, and he's upstairs inside of study waiting to strike into aviator. DZ have not had the best of luck with their drones so far. They aren't really able to find the things that they need, and it is costing them precious time.
Attackers have located a bomb.
Down to just over a minute here now. DarkZero, like I said, in position. They really have been for a while now, but like you had just mentioned there, Parker, unfortunately, without the capability to get drones into any satisfying position, this is probably the most forward one they've had to work themselves for just yet. Trying to actually push out onto the site and make an attempt for the plant is going to be very risky, if not outright a guaranteed death for one of their players on attempting to do it. They still have it at a 5v5. If they can keep it that way, it's going to be good for them when the execute eventually rolls in. Speaking of which, here we go. Hot and Cold's going to go in, takes living room control. The drone intel they have makes them feel it's safe enough, and they might be right on that too. Hyper so far saving DarkZero in this round, but unfortunately the trades have come in evenly and now in advance for the favor of SSG with Fultz's most recent pick. It goes down to a 3v2, but nonetheless, the diffuser is on the ground here, and now SSG need to work for the retake of quite a few players out of position to do this as well, but a great shot from Rampy continues to push the advantage even further here for DarkZero. Hyper will have the opportunity to do just the same though, as he strikes with his third kill on the round. Now let's see if we can make it for a lot of damage onto him, and he won't get that chance as Rampy denies him, gets the triple on the round. At least a little over 5 seconds remaining in excess for the counter defuse.
Hard spot to be in if you're Rampy. He knew that they were going to try to peek him and swing onto him 2 at a time. That's why he was obviously so focused on the Vigil and then relocated after he'd gotten the kill just earlier before that. Honestly, library and living room proving to be a very hard site to read and a hard site to take and pull off successfully, as we've now seen it twice, which might actually be the most that we've seen this bomb site on Villa in quite a long period of time. SSG obviously the victor on this bomb site twice, and there's a good reason as to why they went there. Playing aggressively off site, a lot of this round was honestly won in the first minute and a half to first 2 minutes. We saw the utility that was getting used by DarkZero to try and take map control not really doing all that much. It was not paying off, and it was nowhere near as successful as DZ needed it to be, because then they don't have that same gadgetry to then apply to the bomb site when they go to attack. Now, they did manage to get the diffuser down with all 5 members of DZ still being up, and they'd picked off Canadian and got that opening pick, which usually bodes very well for the remainder of the round, but Canadian was the only one who really drew the ire of DarkZero, as the remaining members of DZ collapsed on the bomb site after that, and DZ were not prepared for the retake that happened, and they got caught after the execute was going down. They got caught in transition, a lot of people would say. And SSG were able to pick them off as they were called back to the bomb site, obviously because of the fact that there was a diffuser planted. So because of this, SSG ends up taking the round. And now they're going to go for somewhere a little bit safer. They're going to go upstairs to Aviator and Games. And they've got an interesting setup in front of our eyes. Very different to what we saw out of DarkZero, who had brought Mira and played very aggressively on that top of main stairs with the Goyo. This is not what SSG seems to want to do. Fultz is going to be in that position with some barbed wire down below him, but he's going to be able to get away very quickly if required.
The main counter to that escape will be Control working its way to the inside of Study, but even that's going to be a bit of a task here for DarkZero to try and accomplish, as it sometimes can be the case. Drones working their way in, though, will probably figure out Fultz once again here if they haven't already done so. Drone will actually stop midway, and now the pinch begins onto the man himself here. Fultz, realizing that the pressure may start to brew his way relatively soon, takes up an angle to counter out an Art Studio push, but that's not exactly what he's going to have to deal with here. Guys, possibly hearing a little bit of noise back by that red stairs player. Does check his flank for a moment, but he's going to end up regrouping once again and won't make the push from Art Studio way, going right into the headshot angle that Fultz had set up for himself right there. So Fultz still staying here, but going to be pushed out in a second here as the swing rolls up from Mitnick. It's a double for DZ. They were not expecting that play to come so suddenly, and it works out so impactfully for DarkZero because of that fact.
So with Hyper and Mint in tow, they've managed to now take control of the main staircase and now also have Study. But the problem is that a portion of the wall leading from Study into the bomb site has been shot out. So you can't exactly push up the way that you want to without losing your feet. The one good thing working for DarkZero in that instance is not just taking out 2 members of Space Station, but also battling the clock. You've beaten back the advantage that the defenders have with that timer. And there's still plenty of opportunity and plenty of time for DarkZero to continue to push this advantage. As well, they've also got quite a bit of utility. All 3 EMPs, lots of swings of the hammer. You've got Zofia with only 1 explosive down and all the X-Kairos left. DarkZero are chocked to the gills and are going to be able to put a lot of hurt on the Space Station here.
Even worse as well is going to be Canadian now getting caught on the flank. Seemed like he would have had 1 or 2 of the players from DarkZero dead to rights, but panicked when actually getting pushed into the fight there. And as a result of that, he's going to go down with nothing to show for it. DarkZero still at a full 5-man roster. That's still thinking Nate gets a piece of the action anyway. He's going to be able to take out Houghton. A start of something, hopefully, for SSG, but if not, DarkZero is still very much in control of the round, trying to isolate Outthinking now as we see him taking quite a bit of damage too, and the first plant attempt is being made on the other side of that vault door. Clips taking out the only other teammate that Thinking Nate had to his name right now. As he gets lower and lower on the Alda ammo, he's just going to get lower and lower on health and eventually get taken out by Eclipse here as DZ take control of a very, very solid attack.
Yeah, that first push honestly knocked SSG off course very, very hard. And you lose control of the top of main stairs, you lose control of classical hallway. You don't have somebody who can then potentially make their way back in on a late flank through Study. You don't have somebody who can drop through the hatch or drop through another staircase and try to flank up the stairs when they're least expecting it. Maybe even over towards red stairs or over from the trophy statuary side. Maybe even try to take 90 if you really feel particularly brazen. It's just 2 very important chess pieces that are not available for you that can cover an awful lot of the board. And with that, not only are you incapable of trading out effectively, which DarkZero is very well aware of, and when they go to structure their attack with all that utility left, they're going to be able to whittle you down 1 by 1, but you will need to swing on the remaining opponents. That's why we saw DZ take those fights. It's why we saw Canadian flank downstairs with the Vector in hand to try to knock DZ off course. You have to go for desperation plays when you are down 1 or 2 bodies and there's 40 seconds remaining. Because if you don't, you are just going to die inside of the bomb site. SSG is very well aware of this. They tried to make it work. Canadian missed his shots. There's no way around it. He gets punished at the bottom of the stairs, and the advantage for DZ grows while they still have utility, and there's nobody from Space Station to stop a default plant from going down without dying. So DarkZero now will have to attack onto Kitchen, as SSG is not sticking to any bomb site more than once. This will be their 3rd site. They were successful on Library. They did not make it upstairs. So I presume, no matter what happens here, we'll probably see Aviator games next.
Let's take a look and see, of course, how their kitchen defense goes. SSG still exactly what you'd expect for this type of a hold here. Canadian is going to be the player to look towards once again for trying to fend off any master push to try and take top-down control. It's actually not a huge active setup, it looks like, on the third floor, though, to prevent any access for DarkZero, and that seems to have been a pretty smart move when you consider that there's not much of an emphasis on the third floor take for DarkZero currently either here. Really only one player working their way up there. Other than that, everything is being focused either on the basement take or the site take itself. See Hyper most notably working on the pantry stairs windows right now, trying to see if he can fish anybody out from SSG and get himself an early duel, but definitely not looking like that's going to be the case here, as the members of SSG also continue to shuffle around from the inside of the site. First minute of the round just having gone by here. Also going to have Bosco probably setting himself up for a nitro cell toss later on, now that he's heard the laundry barricade getting open there, so he can expect some action to potentially come his way.
This will be tough to hold for Space Station as they lose that pantry wall, and Mint will hole up in that position, and he can do some significant damage if he decides to break forward. Additionally, Bosco has been spotted out by a drone, and he wasn't aware of that. And he's inside of the bomb site with very limited protection right now, playing off of the A-bomb chassis. He can watch 2 separate angles from that spot, 3 technically, but his focus is going to be on laundry, as you talked about, and over towards pantry. Hot and cold gets finished off by Fultz as SSG are taking control of the kill feed. One for Mint and Hyper in on it too, but Hyper goes down, thinking they'd traded out by Mint, who gets dropped himself. It's a fracas inside of the bomb site, leaving Skies versus Canadian and Rampy. So Skies will have to find one, but the Silhouette's eluding him for now. He's inside of the bomb site with no diffuser in his hands. Outside, SSG going for the runaround, and the diffuser will need to be picked back up. 45 seconds left for Skies to get this plant off, and that's exactly what he'll do.
Sky's hoping he can get the free win right there against either Rampy or Canadian on the rotate outside. Nitro Cell's chucked. It's way too early, though, unfortunately, as it's not going to get deep enough into Kitchen to deal any real damage to Skies. Sky's actually given a lot of time to set up for a post plan. He's got a really good idea about the swing about to come his way. That doesn't mean he can win it, though, as Rampy shuts down Skies, prevents the clutch, and more importantly, puts SSG back in a leading position now at 5-4. Rampy very happy about that kill. And indeed is going to put SSG that much closer to a win in the series as well. Only 2 more rounds away from that after just winning this round here.
Skies had no chance on that whatsoever. He got absolutely pulverized by Rampy on the swing towards pantry, and Skies was as good as dead. Well played by Skies, played as probably to the best that he could have. When you find your entire team trading out around you and you don't have the opportunity to refrag, what do you have to do? Well, try to get a kill as best as you can. When I believe it was Rampy who went for the long jog outside, his position given away, and Skies thought that he might be hopping on into bikes, but he didn't. So Skies goes for the diffuser, plants with a brick wall behind him, knowing that he's not in any particular danger. And unless somebody crouch walks up on him, he's going to be able to hear them coming from a mile away. That's, of course, ignoring the fact that there may have been a flank drone position somewhere by DarkZero. Skies knows how the advance is going to come from SSG as they try to retake into Kitchen, where that diffuser is, and Rampy hits an absolutely miraculous shot to win it. That, of course, ignoring the fact that DZ's strategy was to try to take through Pantry, command Kitchen, and then box out the members of SSG. They had set themselves up to possibly try for a default plant over by Laundry, but there was a much stronger defense from SSG focused in that part of the bomb site. So go for where it's weaker. Go for Kitchen. You've opened up the pantry wall already. You just need to watch the doorway that leads out to the hallway and maybe a cross that could come in through the kitchen doors leading into the secondary bomb site. SSG was ready for it, though, and they pivoted after watching Laundry. They met firepower with firepower, whittled the numbers down, and Skies, with his best efforts, couldn't lock up the round.
All right, guys, so into round 10, DZ looking to tie up the game once again and keep this match that much closer to a third map. Obviously, we're going to see some early action on this pantry stairs yet again. We've got some roaming presence here for the defenders as well, both Rampy along with one more. I think that's Thinking Me on the left side of the screen there, helping out with the assistance here. Indeed it is. Thank you, Mr. Observer. And checking out and hopefully trying to kill any of the members from DZ that will look to try and take control here early on. Aside from that, though, the hold from SSG is going to be focused mainly on the upstairs area, closer to the site, and trying to kind of delay there anything at all. Away from that, DarkZero has a lot of presence working its way in from the south side of the building too. I think there's a couple players trying to work their way in from there. The main bulk of the fighting is going to be going on here in Kitchen. These are the important fights, and we do see another member from DZ adding themselves to this as well. Skies all the way in living room already, trying to possibly either get the flank off onto Rampy here, or of course just force them back through that avenue there, which is going to be successful. Rampy goes down to under 25 and has to go all the way down to the basement.
Canadian trading out some of his life to take out Eclipse, and down goes the Thatcher. Thatcher obviously could be quite important at shaking off any denial that would be present on any of the walls into the bomb site. You can see Thinking Nade with the mute jammers in hand would do just that. He has all of them down, so this could be particularly challenging for DarkZero to get that wall open unless they post somebody up underneath it. A ping on the Canadian as his position is given away. Tracers will reveal his spot, and he's able to do some damage to Skies, but it's SSG to just absolutely clobber DarkZero. They are looking to put this one away, and it's all on the shoulders of Hot and Cold, with match point very much possible for SSG.
SSG with such a heavy roaming presence here, and DarkZero again not able to properly get themselves out of the trap which SSG had set, throwing it right into the face of DarkZero and really shutting down any hope they would have had of trying to win this round through normal means. Now it has to come out and clutch from Houghton, having to self-drone himself right now because these kills happen so far away from the site. He's so detached from the situation, trying to brute force his way through a toxic gas grenade there. Not going to work out. Has a barricade blocking his access to connector. Obviously, that'll be very easily dealt with, but now he's going to deal with the door. A metal reinforced barricade over on the other side in the middle of Trophy. There's just no real winning here, unfortunately, for Hot and Cold. He's going to have to just take a chance on one of these angles and swing it. It's exactly what he'll do. Starts out well for him as well. Takes out Rampy, gets himself up to 3 kills on the round. Might have a chance for number 4 if the Trophy player looks to swing against him, but at this point, the 2 remaining members of SSG are more than likely just playing this smart. They'll only fight him if they have to, as they know he has to go for the plant, and you can reinforce that back with the rotate from Fultz back into connector. They don't want to take a challenge on that. They want to take him down in a 2v1, and that's exactly what they'll do. SSG take round number 10 and put themselves up on map and match point.
It's not just the way that SSG played, but it's a lot of respect being shown to Hot and Cold by both Bosco and the remaining member. I believe it was Rampy, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think so.
Escaping as best as they could. They didn't want to engage in any particular gunfights. They didn't need to. The clock was their best friend in that instance. So you just run away. You know that Hot and Cold is going to be trying to get a plant down. He's going to encircle you. Head through statuary, try to get into trophy to get a plant down. All you need to do is just play the clock as best as you can, force him into a vulnerable position, and then either make him get off of that defuse or kill him. SSG playing it as well as they could. And a lot of this, by the way, defense from SSG hinges on their effectiveness downstairs. They put, what was it, 3 bodies originally on the roam down below, recalled 1 of those up top, and Canadian had coverage downstairs. Working out very well. As Canadian and Thinking Nade, if I remember correctly, working in tandem with one another, wasting a lot of time. Canadian in particular just being able to get away from the various members of DZ before Thinking Nade could refrag. And then the Valkyrie cameras providing tons of information when DZ did move upstairs. DZ obviously having some issues with that discovery portion of this map. So they bring a Lion, very similar to what we saw at a space station. And given the fact that there's a mute on the board, Space Station should be able to play around those mute jammers when the EE1Ds go off from Lion. But for the roamers, who will likely be unsupported, they are going to be in a tougher spot. And DZ are a tremendously talented team when it comes to droning. And if they can pounce upon one roamer who they've isolated, using an EE1D, that opening pick could be enough for DZ to take a round or 2 and propel us to overtime.
It is, of course, going to be the library defense once again here from SSG. So for DarkZero, they've got 2 primary choices, unless they bring something out here that I personally haven't seen yet. And those 2 choices are going to be the attack strategy, which SSG used, going through the 2 soft walls on the north side of the room, in between that, or on either side of that dresser. Or you can take out the top-down coverage and then try to brute force your way in through library. Now, that is the much harder option. And with this kill here, they're more than likely going to swing back towards the soft walls. Hyper, again, starts us off beautifully in the round, just like did a few rounds back as well. Gets a double kill right at the very start of it and puts DarkZero into fantastic position to close out.
So there will be some calm before the storm and a little bit of calm after the storm as well. Hyper looks to find kill number 3 as he's on an absolute tear, just enacting as much pain as he can on his opponents. And Canadian was the next one on deck. Still plenty of reserve ammunition there for Hyper, and he's got utility to spare as well as he pulls out the lifeline to blow open some of the wall. He almost clutched. There's not even words for that, John.
There was like 3 drones in the area too, but either way, Sky's going to take out Thinking Nade. Bosco's left alone in the 1vx here. Going to be able to sneak off that 1 kill. Takes about 25 HP away from him. The plant is going down in deep sight right now. He does not really have access to the planter in any way, shape, or form. Has to wait out the EE1D. Works himself in. Of course, the Banshee won't be affecting him, but on the swing, finally gets taken out there by Eclipse. And DarkZero take round number 11 in relatively flawless fashion, minus that little play there over at the basement stairs.
Yeah, I mean, you get a 3K as Hyper. Yeah, that's fine. We forgive that. We forgive the missteps that are made when he goes on to drone, because the drone wasn't in front of him. It was far enough away that he didn't see the very quiet Bosco sneaking up on him and knifing him to his doom. Library and living room do not go in favor of SSG. For the 3rd time, eventually they would have to lose this bomb site, and unfortunately for them, it means that they are unable to close out this map. They will have one more chance to do that before overtime kicks in. Now, the good news is that because DarkZero chose to go onto defense to start off this map, Space Station will defend twice when it comes to overtime. That might not be that much of a benefit, because if overtime happens, that'll mean that DarkZero won 3 rounds on attack, which matches the total of SSG on attack, which happens to match the total of both these teams on defense. So both sides at exactly even. This has been a relatively balanced Villa. Only way that breaks is if SSG wins it. And they're going to go back to Kitchen. They won it 2 rounds before, and they are hoping to do so yet again.
Very much do or die time, though, to try and shut this down in regulation. A lot of emphasis being put upstairs yet again here now. It should be noted once more that SSG played this very horizontally the last time they were on this, and it was a success, though, mainly because DarkZero responded in the same way, trying to play for basement and pantry stairs control, and then funnel all that into the site with additional pressure coming in through like areas like laundry as well here. Not a lot of 3rd floor play coming out from them the last time. They changed that up this time, and the overall roaming presence there from SSG is going to remain light. Then maybe a bit more angle work will open itself up there for DarkZero to play onto. Now, I do not see a sledge on the attackers. That may not be in the cards, but at the same time, they still have plenty of soft destruction, so it's certainly still something they can work towards here if they want that to be their play. But looking very similar to the previous round so far here, with the emphasis being on, I believe, basement and 1st floor control instead of the top floor.
Opening pick obviously is going to decide so much of the way that this plays out. And if you look so far at the way that opening picks are breaking, it's actually not a proper indicator of which team then goes on to win the round. And I think credit needs to be given to both squads and how they've played after losing somebody early. Now, obviously, the last round notwithstanding, after Hyper crushed 2 separate members of SSG. And he's on the hunt for another round to have a spectacular start, as his domain at the moment is over by Trophy and Statuary and Astro as well. Nitro Cell in hand will go up, but it does not connect onto Hyper, and Canadian will likely be miffed at how close that one came. It will give a very handy-dandy portal down below. There's Valkyrie cameras positioned on that 2nd floor. Those were likely giving intel for SSG for that Nitro Cell. It was unfortunate for their fans, but the Nitro Cell missed.
And with all this additional soft destruction, using, again, like I mentioned before, the buck instead of the sledge to get it done, they do have the top-down play open for themselves here. Now, whether they're going to be able to get anything from it, though, that's another story. This was something that DarkZero used heavily, as did SSG, to be completely fair to them, on our previous map, and had kind of mixed results from time to time. Seems like it could be happening here as well. Sky's definitely finding out at least one player. I think that was Bosco, but not able to get an actual angle onto said player because of the way the bars work out. That's going to change, though. Mint finally opens up an opportunity to impact here after, I think, opening up a hole for himself. And after that one, the first strike is finally made, giving DarkZero the edge at the beginning. Well, I should say midpoint of the round here, as we're already down to about 40 seconds left, meaning DarkZero's execute following that kill might not be far behind.
And they're going to try to march their way through laundry. Blue as they eye kitchen as well, but evil eyes are set up that will have a nice line of sight onto them. Mint gets taken out by a Nitro Cell. Hot and Cold attempting the plant. There goes Hyper, so no coverage. But Hot and Cold will get away with this. He's in the corner. It's now Fultz's job to gun him down. Hot and Cold buries Canadian, but the funeral procession is short-lived as Fultz is able to avenge his teammate. It all comes down to Skies and Eclipse. They have control from above. Eclipse watching the stairs as SSG has a numbers advantage, but they'll need to go for the diffuser. Sky shrewdly playing this hatch, and I don't think anybody sees it. No! It's a take upstairs from Thinking Nade, and Fultz will now fall onto the diffuser. A missed opportunity from Eclipse. As Fultz is halfway through, he's going to stick it. And by golly gee, SSG takes the map and the series. They get their revenge. Rampy hyped up 2-0 for Space Station over your major champions, DarkZero.
SSG, some solid play there in the final round. Hyper finally meeting his match, it seems, on the execute, either due to a lack of info or just not checking that other angle. But either way, after a great opening round from him, just one before that, unable to carry that performance forward. And when he goes down, it's really the beginning of the end once again for DarkZero as they fail to follow up any performances after that. Even the attempts to flank things out towards the end is countered due to a nice play coming up. I think it was Astro Stairs from Thinking Nade. So not working out ultimately for DarkZero on that top-down post plant, but still very well fought over the course of these two maps. Just proving, though, that SSG is better, at least today, as they take the 2-0 victory over them.
We talk often about how the team going for the rematch tends to prevail. Well, this was a rematch of a rematch. SSG took the very first match. DZ had their counter punch, as we like to call it, and it was a very important one because without that win, you know, DZ does not win the major. But now SSG has the last laugh here in the best 2 out of 3. With that said, John, it was a pleasure to share the mic with you for the very first time. I hope you had as much fun as I did, but unfortunately, that's it for us. We got some analysts, and then after that, Kicks and Stokes for match number 2, but let's toss to the desk first.
Thank you so much, Intero and Blue. Wonderful job casting, as always. Have a great evening, but let's get right to the highlights and have our analysts break it down. Veli, what a slugfest. Oh my goodness.
And it's absolutely crazy, right? I mean, both teams were just going off left and right. I mean, at one point it looked like Space Station was in charge, and then they'll take turns with DarkZero. DarkZero would step up, and you saw big plays coming up from everybody, and it wasn't like anybody really had a bad game. Canadian went off, but it was really Fultz and Rampy that did it for me. These players were fantastic. But still, great game. I'm gonna watch them go again. Another 3 maps. Let's get another series going.
If we could see this another best of 3 between these two, that would be great. Sadly, we can't tonight, but in the future for sure. Space Station winning this game is huge. Obviously, that puts them into top 4 for the regular season. That means they're safe from relegation. The first team officially safe from that. That means they're going to the North American or the U.S. finals. Which will be really exciting for them. And then they've got a really good chance of getting auto-invited to the major, too. So it's still, they're not guaranteed to be at the major, but they have a very good chance. So Space Station Gaming winning this match was really important. They had some really highlight plays that we're seeing now. DarkZero put up a good fight, though, and this was a map that I thought DarkZero might struggle on due to previous history. They've not really been, that was a funny one. They've not been great on this map before, and this is a really good one for Space Station. So they put up a good fight, but ultimately, I think the expected team did win Villa.
You know what was interesting, though? You know, we were watching, I was just like, wow, everyone was doing their job. Everyone was doing really well. Both sides fighting their absolute hardest, Veli. I mean, both teams played exceptional, without question.
Yeah, that second map was definitely a respectable one, right? Both teams got to fight it out with not a lot of issues between them, and we just saw players step up when needed to be. For instance, this one player that I know Jesse wants to talk about, but I just want the words to come out of my mouth. Rampy in his clutch moments. I know it's 2v1s, but ultimately the 1v1s he took were just amazing. Jesse, I don't want to take your segment away, dude. He was amazing this game.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, we have his stats up right now. Obviously, we're talking about Rampy, so.
I mean, he played really, really well. 10-7. I'm surprised he didn't. I mean, it was really a team effort from Space Station, but I think the impact he had was significantly higher, and that's not necessarily shown in these stats. But everybody on SSG played really well. Bosco, maybe it's like a little surprising that he's 2-9. But like, I don't know, he wasn't sticking out to me personally as a big problem for Space Station.
He has a 100% headshot hit rate. No, I'm playing.
Yeah, but with 2 kills, that's that'll happen.
It was interesting.
Yeah.
But Jackie, there's just one tiny thing I want to throw out there. It was the meta that SSG brought in attack for me. Lion and Ying was just genius. You Ying out the room with
sure.
the Candelas, and then you run the EE 1D, get the plant down, run out, and it worked so well on so many rounds. It was refreshing to see Ying out there. A lot of people might disagree with me, but I thought it was funny to see her just go off in Space Station, really taking advantage of her skill set.
Yeah.
I mean, tool
Yeah.
set.
And Ying was being used also on Cafe, if we'll go back. Remember, they used Ying a lot. It wasn't the
Rampy.
same player. It was Rampy, yeah, over on Cafe, clearing out VIP when they were attacking on Kitchen. So that's neat that we're seeing multiple different maps, Space Station incorporating Ying on different players. And it's not every single round. It's not all the time with one player, but there's situational uses that they're really getting a lot out of her for. And I like that.
Yeah.
And obviously, we keep on talking about Rampy here. We saw great plays from multiple players from both teams. But Jesse, you were particularly impressed with Rampy's post-plant plays.
Did he freeze? I thought he was just giving you the most
He
gangsta
froze.
stare. Okay.
I know. I was just like,
Can I
okay,
answer that then?
all right,
Rampy,
Jesse.
come.
Yes, I know.
Jesse,
You're
come
both
back.
feeling the Rampy love
Like,
right
Jesse,
now.
come back.
so
I need
totally.
you. That's my duo, man. But Rampy, what he did for Space Station Gaming, especially on a tight map like that, was just fantastic. So in those 2v1s, it was essentially 1v1s where, you know, another player would go get the bomb, the diffuser, but it was Rampy that challenged the 1v1s. And the thing was, Rampy won those 1v1s with great efficiency. He was there getting the first shot. He was aggressive. He was the one that was peaking. And that was the game changer when it came to Space Station Gaming, right? To have a player like Rampy step up like that and just show his dominance. And it wasn't against just nobodies. It's against DarkZero. But even beyond that, it's against players like Skies. That's insane. And you know what? Space Station, they have a lot of talent to spread the kills around. But coming into the scene, Rampy was one of the most explosive players in my eyes, and he just proves that as time goes by, he's going to continue playing up to that standard. So, gotta respect it.
Yeah, I'm sure Space Station Game is like absolutely celebrating
They
right
gotta
now. Just a great win to have against DarkZero.
Talking with Jesse.
I'm wondering what's happening. Yeah, I wonder what's happening, Jesse. But I was actually gonna ask. I wonder what's happening in the DarkZero locker room right now. Like, what are they saying to each other post?
No, I'm gonna say it. Even though they're probably not, like, it was unfortunate to watch that first map, you know, players dropping out, and it really wasn't their fault, right? And you can't take that away from Space Station Gaming because they were incredible as well. But it's just the simple fact that DarkZero, they got on top of NA again, and they lost this good series against Space Station Gaming. That's why I said I really want to see another one because, you know, you can put an asterisk there, but at the same time, I'm just gonna stay away from that. DarkZero, they got a taste of what it's like to be up top. You saw them, nobody sincerely had a bad game. They all played great. I think they're looking ahead. They got to play United. They're not going to think about Space Station Gaming right now. And if they come back hungry, they might beat United like they stole something. So I'm going to be really scared of them. I'm going to be on the lookout for them.
So we talked about this a little bit towards the beginning of the match, but you know, we constantly hear people say that DarkZero does their homework, DarkZero does their homework.
Yes.
It definitely seemed like Space Station Gaming did their homework because, you know, they were just ahead of them just constantly. It just seemed like they were countering everything. They were just totally prepared. So it looks like they definitely did their homework this time. What did you see from Space Station Gaming that you really liked and you're like, wow, they're ready for this?
It's interesting, right? Because we're seeing new sites be played, frustrating sites, especially on Villa, and it's just Space Station just having a lot in our arsenal when it comes to strategy. I mean, like I said before, the Yin and Lion thing is something that me personally, I didn't expect from Space Station Gaming, and I'm happy you brought up that specific question because I've always put Space Station and DarkZero in the same box. They have always been two of the teams in North America that has always done extreme homework on their opponents. They come so prepared, and they have that really strong textbook play style. Now, DarkZero and Space Station, yeah, they can throw in some freestyle flow in there and bring in things that you don't expect, but ultimately, when it comes to droning, getting info about their opponents, and just execution, there's no team better than both of these right now in NA. So, yeah, you give Space Station some time and they can come out and beat your butt too.
And I believe that we have our interview ready,
Okay.
and I'm trying to figure out who we are speaking to. I know that we requested Canadian or
Yeah.
Fault, so I think we got Mr. Canadian
Let's go.
on deck. Canadian, can you hear me?
Yeah.
How you doing? How you feeling, sir? Yay!
Feeling pretty
Hey, okay, you're safe from relegation. Yeah, I'm sure. Oh my gosh, I love it. You are all smiles. I mean, you're safe from relegation and you get to go to the U.S. finals. I'm sure this feels like a huge relief. Just talk to me about the emotions you're feeling right now.
I mean, honestly, it's more. I'm happy. I'm happy we put DZ in their place. I mean, we still have more work to do. I know they're going to come firing back for the next group and for the major, but yeah, they needed to be reminded.
I love it. Needed to be reminded. Well, they definitely are probably taking this loss pretty hard. I do want to talk to you about what your team specifically targeted, what you were focusing on when you were playing DarkZero. I know you've repeatedly said, hey, they're a great team when they get to do their homework. I was just telling Veli, it looked like y'all did your homework. You were very prepared for them.
Yep, we were very prepared. We knew what we had to do to control the pace of the game, make them play our game. They either had to try to play their game into ours, or they had to just sit there and deal with our game. But basically, we weren't going to stop playing our game. We were gonna shove it down their throat and make sure that they had to try to figure that out and adapt to that. We didn't let them control the pace like they did in the major. I don't want to get into too many specifics as to what we did, but basically, we controlled the pace and we made sure that they couldn't play their game.
So I know that stage one, it definitely had some ups and downs for your team, but stage two seems to be going fantastic. Is there anything that you want to say to your team and to your fans out there? I mean, it's definitely been pretty successful for y'all so far.
I mean, thank you for supporting us as always. I hope you guys had no fear that we would be back. I've kind of said, like, losing that major really fucking fired us up. Sorry for cursing. But yeah, it fired us up. We want to be back to where we think we belong. We want to work for it. We want to remind everyone what we're capable of. We're not done until we say we're done, basically. As long as we keep working hard and we know put in the work that we need to put in, we're capable of anything. So we just got to remember that and don't forget to put in the work. Don't slip up.
We ain't done and still working. I absolutely love that answer. Canadian, thank you so much for speaking with us.
Yep, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Have a wonderful evening. Go enjoy that victory. I'm going to bring it back to our analyst here. And Jesse is back. Hi.
You, baby.
He's moving. You were frozen with the grumpiest looking face ever. You were like...
It was a
like,
thug stare.
Like, Veli was like, whoa, what did you just say to make Jesse so mad? And then you weren't talking, and so we were just like, okay. But you're back. He's all smiles. But I really, really enjoyed that interview with Canadian. Just his answer to that last question there, where he was like, I hope you all like weren't sleeping on us. Like, you knew that we would be back.
We were scared.
Like, I absolutely loved it. Yeah. No, for sure. Veli, like, talk about that. And I asked him, I said, stage one was a little rocky for y'all, but stage two, man, chef's kiss. They're looking pretty darn good.
But you know what it is, Jackie? I mean, take a look at, any sport, any team, any region. I mean, teams like G2, you have other teams that they fall off just for a little bit. And it might not be, a deep drop that whatever they face whenever they fall off, but it could be minor. And for Space Station Gaming, they weren't on top for a little bit. It was DZ just taking in just all the fame, all the glory, right? But then that point in time comes where Space Station's like, all right, daddy's home. We're ready now. And DarkZero got that. So during this next major that we have, I can't wait because the matchups are going to be fire. So let's see if Space Station can stay on top.
Yeah, I mean, he said beeping fired up and that they needed to put DZ in their place. And you know what? They certainly did. But gentlemen, we ain't done here. We got another matchup. Very excited about this. Tempo versus TSM.